Mr. Bourne, have you.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Tonight on the agenda, we have 4 public hearings, 4 letters of recommendation, 1 information report, 2 correspondence items, 1 amended site development plan, and 1 other item. Long agenda tonight. Can I get a roll call of commission members, please?
Commissioner Clayton,
Here.
Commissioner Depler,
Here.
Commissioner Depler's here on Zoom, Commissioner Jackson,
Here.
Commissioner Rubus,
Here.
Commissioner Bourne,
Here.
Commissioner Bourne's also here via Zoom, Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Chair Beatty,
Here.
Councilmember Marshall, Mayor Garitano.
Here.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Can I get an approval of the meeting from March 2nd, please? Of the motion by Commissioner Helfrey, seconded by Commissioner Clayton. Any comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion passes, 1 abstention. And it looks like the Department of Planning has some opening comments.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you. Just a couple. First of all, I believe Ms. Wheeler went around and introduced herself to all of you. She is our acting city attorney tonight for the purposes of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we welcome her and thank her for being here. Also, we did receive a number of comments after Friday's packet was published, and so those comments have been placed at your chairs tonight. So just wanted to advise you that there's a few extras out there. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll go ahead and go into public comment session. This is for any of the non-public hearings. And if you want to speak on any of those or anything, fill out a comment card in the back, bring it to Mr. Newberry, and he will call you when it is your turn. And if you are on Zoom, use the raise hand feature and we will call you when it is your turn. All right, Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first speaker is Mr. Doster.
Thank you, Travis. Chair Beatty, members of the commission, Mayor. My name is Michael Doster. I'm the land use attorney on the development team for Latitude N38. We were before you on March 2nd. And prior to that meeting, in the afternoon of that day, we submitted lengthy responses to the information report that had been published the Friday before. And we also submitted a revised plan. As of this evening, we have not received any comments to our responses or the revised plan. And I understand that our matter is on the agenda tonight for a letter of recommendation of denial based upon the department's report. And I know that the department may not agree with what I'm about to say, but in the letter that we submitted on March 2nd, we attempted to make our case that we have complied with every specific requirement, every specific guideline that's applicable to the subject property and the proposed development. We still do not understand why the department is recommending denial because we don't have any specific examples of how we have not complied with specific requirements and specific guidelines. We do have opinions, but we don't have the facts. And that's a quandary for us. We would hope that the commission would take another look at this and not recommend denial. But I know based upon the last time we were here that that may not happen. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Comer.
Okay, hi, my name's Tim Comer. I live at 2460 Etherton Road. I live in Ward 8. I'm here to speak out against latitude 38. I've lived in Wildwood for decades. I've lived at the same piece of property. And I just come up here and repeat myself, I feel like. But tonight I dropped off some photos for you all to look at because there's been some talk that I don't have an erosion problem. So the photos I have brought to you guys tonight will plainly show that I have a major erosion problem. And it will only get worse when you have a development like this that is 44 units, and it will just destroy my property. But I want to get on from the erosion because I have pictures for you. So the way that they have their plan set up, they want parking on Etherton Road. And I would invite every one of you to come drive on Etherton Road and take a look at if you add any more parking, because you gave parking to the Main Street Crossing subdivision so they can have parking in front of their homes. And it's heavily used. And if you put it on the other side, not only will you create a vision problem as people are coming and going down the street, but Etherton Road sees about 500-600 cars a day. And I can show you documentation. I have a really good camera system that I just installed, and it takes a photo of every car that goes down my street. So with that said, there's going to be a huge parking problem with this kind of a development, and it's a rental development. So his residents are not going to have a stay in the city because they're renters, and renters are different. And I've lived next to his renters for 6 years. One renter had the police called 19 times. And I tried to call Mr. Bosworth because he used to be my neighbors. We used to be friends. We used to get along, and we got along until he started to try to propose these high density developments. And he would never respond. And his answer was always, it's the city's problem. So I stopped calling him and I started calling the city. And one of his several renters was good, and that renter left because he didn't see eye to eye with Mr. Bosworth, and Mr. Bosworth wouldn't give him a longer lease. But that's none of my business. But I can tell you what is my business. And my side of the street is a park-like setting. And it's been a park-like setting before Wildwood was ever thought of. And like I said, I've lived here for decades, and 90% of my street is a park-like setting until you get to Main Street Crossing. And that was a different setting because it was one giant farm field. So it was understandable that they're going to build a neighborhood there. I opposed that one as well because I thought it was, again, too high density. And after you speak with residents that have moved in there for a while, they kind of feel the same way, but they love the area and they love their house and they want to stay there. But you can't just dump this apartment style living right in the middle of Main Street Crossing and Canberry and all the extra cars it'll cause, but you're going to ruin my quality of life. You're going to ruin my setting. Main Street took all my sunsets. This development will be just nothing but noise and problems. There's no on-site management. There's no one to call. Mr. Bosworth doesn't respond in a quick manner. And it's just not right. That's why you guys denied it twice already. The density is still too high.
That's time.
And I appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the remainder of the cards received by the department are relating to the public hearing items.
Okay.
And I'm not seeing anyone with their hands raised on Zoom at the moment.
All right. In that case, we'll go ahead and move on to the first public hearing. In the city of Wildwood, public hearings are truly intended to accept comments and questions concerning these posted items. Since these requests are being presented at a public hearing, No action is planned on these items tonight, and consideration of them is to be taken no earlier than the May 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This approach ensures the members of the commission will hear all opinions before taking any action. The city's Department of Planning will address the comments, questions, and concerns that are raised tonight and include them as part of its formal recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Anyone in attendance at City Hall tonight wanting to speak should fill out a speaker's card on the back table and leave it with Mr. Newberry. Those in attendance via the Zoom webinar platform should use the raise hand feature to indicate you wish to speak at these hearings. A team member will add you to the list of speakers, which will then be communicated to me as chair, and I will invite you to speak when it is your turn. The public hearing process is outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, which can be found back at the entry table to the council chambers. The commission will allow all parties adequate time to present their position. As outlined in the public hearing guidelines pamphlet, those individuals representing themselves will be allocated 3 minutes to speak. Speakers who are designated as a group speaker representing a group of more than 5 individuals will be allocated 5 minutes to speak. In addition, information on these items can be found on the city's website at www.cityofwildwood.com. The commission would like to thank you for your cooperation and participation at tonight's hearing. All right, Mr. Newberry, PZ 2 and 2A-26.
Mr. Chair, the first items on public hearing tonight are PZ
Yeah,
2
Mr. Vunich, sorry.
and 2A-26, Mia Bella, care of Doug Nance, Lombardo Homes of St. Louis, LLC, 4 Research Park Circle, Suite 130, St. Charles, Missouri, 63304. A request for a change in the zoning district designations of 4 properties that are currently identified in the NU non-urban resident district, Town Center, Neighborhood Edge, and Neighborhood General districts to the R6A 4,000 square foot resident district with a planned residential development overlay district, PRD, all being in association with a tract of land that is 10.43 acres in size and located on the north side of Manchester Road, west of its intersection with State Route 109. Street addresses 17115, 17119, 17127, and 17135 Manchester Road, St. Louis County locator numbers 24V 430086, 24V 430121, 24V 430064, and 24V 430112. Proposed use: 74 attached single-family dwellings in clusters of 4 and 5 units with associated street and pedestrian networks, along with public rights-of-way dedications and improvements, stormwater management facilities, and required public spaces. This particular site is located in Ward 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as with all public hearings, the department provides a brief presentation of some exhibits and some site photographs associated with the requests. The first is just an aerial view of the location of the site that's outlined in red. We've identified to the north and to the west is the reserve at Wildwood that's under development by McKelvey Homes, just to give you some additional context there. The property is located on Manchester Road, west of State Route 109. The next is a plan, slightly colorized plan. I just want to point out 2 locations, the 2 curb cuts onto Manchester Road, which will follow with photographs from those locations. This is standing at the easternmost entrance to the proposed subdivision, looking to the east. Again, on Manchester Road. This is at the same location, looking to the west. And then moving west down the road to the second entrance, the western entrance or exit, looking to the east. And then this is looking towards the west. The grading activity you see there, again, is the activity associated with the reserve at Wildwood. The next photograph is standing on the other side of Manchester Road, the south side of Manchester Road, looking along the western boundary of this site and the reserve at Wildwood site. And then this is the eastern boundary. The structure you see on the right-hand side is Old Pond School. And then on the left to the west is the existing home on the subject tract of land, one of the existing homes. And then this is standing on the site of the reserve, looking to the east. And what's captured here, where the tree line ends, is the grading that has occurred in association with the reserve at Wildwood that abuts this subject site. And that concludes the department's presentation of photographs. And Mr. Chair, the petitioner is in attendance and has a presentation prepared.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Would the petitioner like to step forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, Mayor Garritano, Councilman Marshall. For the record, my name's Mike Faulkner. I'm Vice President of Sterling Engineering with offices at 5055 New Baumgartner, St. Louis, 63129. With me here tonight, I also have Ryan Holmes with the Lombardo Homes Develop Company. Hopefully between both of us, we'll be able to answer any questions that the commission may have regarding this development. We could, I'll run through this rather quickly. Staff was very good at describing where the property is. This is on Manchester Road, about 600 foot west of Highway 109 on the north side. To the north and to the west of this development is the reserve at Wildwood, as staff has indicated. This exhibit just shows that it is located within town center. The next one. And this is a quick zoning map, which it is non-urban. To the north and to the west is the reserve at towns at Wildwood. And as staff was able to put out, the existing zoning is non-urban with neighborhood general and neighborhood edge district in town center. What we're proposing is an R6A planned residential with the planned residential PRD overlay in the town center district. Now, under the R6A, it allows for up to 10 units. If you go to skip that one, if you would, please, Travis, and maybe go to the next one. And as you're aware, under the R6A, it is capped at 10. Our development here will be roughly about 7 units to the acre. It consists of 74 townhomes in groups of 4s and 5s. These will be for sale units on individual fee simple lots. So these will be for sale, not for rent. Each one will have a 2-car garage with basements. So all of these units will have basements. And we have 2 entrances. Originally, we submitted to the staff and we had 1 entrance. After meeting with the fire department expressed concerns with that, wanted us to go and look at coming in with a second access because they felt it was necessary because of the number of units that were going to be in this development, which we did comply with that and submitted this new plan, which shows the 2 entrances. We will have sidewalks. The sidewalks be on both sides of the street as if comes in the middle entrance. And then there will be sidewalks. And I want to point out that each one of these units, as they face Manchester Road, will be the fronts of the units. The fronts of the units in right behind them will be that common ground strip that runs in between the groupings. And then at the far north, that will be the fronts of the units. So all the rears of the units with the garages will be facing each other and will not be out towards a lot of the public to be able to see. So it'll be hidden back behind all of the units. Each of the units will have a 2-car garage with a 2-car driveway, 20-foot wide driveway. So we'll be able to promote 2 cars in the drive along with 2 cars in the garages. With that, we also have an additional 45 spaces that are in the center of the unit of this development. You can see where we've got some parking spaces in the middles, and we have some parking spaces on the east side. Those are for guest parking, and all of the sidewalks to those units will lead along those fronts, and it will all tie together and tie into the sidewalk network that will feed out to Manchester Road. Go to the next one. The units, again, these units will be for sale units. They'll have 10-foot separation between the groupings. And again, 20-foot rear yard, 20-foot driveway in the rears. Let's go to the next one. Maybe go to the next one. So after meeting with staff, staff had indicated the desire and the need was at Pond School. Pond School was in desperate need of additional parking. So after meeting with staff, we came up with the design to install a parking bays and a drive, along with a drive out. After talking with Fire would like to have seen the additional driveway, so did staff. So what we're proposing as our public space contribution is to build that new parking area along with a drive that will go out to Manchester Road. And then what I'd like to do is introduce Ryan Holmes, who's with Lombardo, to try and talk about the units themselves.
Good evening. As Mike said, I'm Ryan Holmes. I'm a land development engineer from Lombardo. I think Mike did a very nice job of presenting the overall project. But I'd like to speak a little bit more about the units themselves that we're proposing with this development. So we've got 3 separate floor plans that make up the configurations of the 4 and 5 unit buildings. We've got the Wakefield, which is the largest of the 3 at just over 2,000 square foot, and the Bristol 1590 and the Lancaster at 1788 square feet. Every unit, as Mike said, they have basements, and they're going to start around $400,000 as a base price. That's the starting package. The basements will start out unfinished with the option to upgrade as is, with other options within the product line. And I'll show you a little bit more about those as we move on to the next slide. So this is our standard 4-unit configuration. As you can see here, we've got the Wakefield and Bristol's alternating across. The Wakefield and the Bristol, they do interlock with, I'll call it that notch there. So those two go hand in hand and are going to be side by side in this floor plan. The Wakefield being the largest, it does have a lower level primary bedroom, which is nice. It is a 3-bedroom unit with options to customize. And then the Bristol is a 2-bedroom with both the bedrooms upstairs. So this is the main floor. Going up to the 2nd floor, you'll see the Wakefield there on the end on the left, and 3rd from the right, the larger unit. One thing I'll point out here is that does have a 2-story open great room, which is kind of nice. So there'll be a balcony or the loft area looking down to open space into the main floor plan. So it's kind of unique for this style of product. And there's go back real quick. And then we are a semi-custom, home builder. Obviously with this product line, we don't have as much flexibility as we do with the single family houses. However, the footprint might be set. We do have flexibility as far as non-load bearing walls and a second primary bedroom on the 2nd floor and things like that. That is a nice option. And here's the basements, as I mentioned, unfinished to start out. They do have prospective customers do have the option to finish the basements along with the other upgrades and finishes. This is the front view that Mike mentioned that would be facing Manchester Road and the exterior property lines around the site. We got just kind of the color palette there and the 4-unit building. So that would be what you would see from the exterior. And this is an enlarged view there, to give you an example. This is the 5-unit building. For the most part, the same with the addition of, we do have the Lancaster there on the end, which is the middle square footage. So in this picture here, you can see it depicted on the left-hand side, followed by the Wakefield and Bristol there with the notch adjoining the two. We do have some flexibility in the layout as far as mirroring and the semi-custom options within the units. That's largely driven by the sales, as these are, as Mike mentioned, for sale, no rentals. So the customers will be, deciding finishes and dictating the order or the exact layout of these units. So here's the second floor of those buildings. I'm not going to go too much into this, similar to what we've got before with the 4-unit buildings. And then we've got the basement layout. All units have the basements. So, and here's the front facade or the front elevation of the unit, as you'd see from Manchester. The rear with the garage entries, that'll be on the internal streets, packing each other. So, and myself and Mike, happy to answer any questions you guys may have, and thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Let's see. Are there any comments from the commission at this point?
In looking at your elevation,
Is your mic?
is there any brick?
Right now, we do not have proposed brick. However, we're open to suggestions if that's something that the staff would like to see.
It looked like it was siding and some other composition material.
Yeah, that's, so I'm in the land department, but from my understanding that hardy board is the material that's required within the town center district area. So we'll certainly be following all of those requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a combination that they have right now of the vertical and then the horizontal lap siding.
Commissioner Helfrey?
This is actually for Mr. Vunich. Do we have a map of the zoning overlays for this area right now? See, so that we can visually see what is neighborhood edge, what is non-urban, what is neighborhood general for this piece of property?
That's the regulating plan of town center.
I mean, just for us to see though.
Pardon, ma'am? I didn't.
I'm sorry, for us to see for the next time this comes in front of us.
Certainly, we'll get something for you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Commissioner Rubis?
Joe, how does the PRD work in this particular instance? What does that do for the city and residents?
Well, first and foremost, Mr. Lucas, it's not intended to increase density. The density set by the underlying zoning district designation. What the PRD or the overlay district allows is flexibility in design in terms of setbacks, lot widths, tree preservation, grading, etc. So in principle, the overlay district is intended to allow the development to work in concert with the site versus the opposite.
Mayor Garitano?
All right, well, thank you. I have a couple of questions and comments here. So you put the Development and Zoning Review Committee on December 4th, and I was looking back at my comments at that meeting. And some of the things that I talked about were related to the density on that property there. On December 4th, your plan had 74 units. The plan that you're presenting tonight has 74 units. So you haven't changed the density one bit. Why did that feedback not matter to you?
But Mike,
As far as number of units,
Yes.
that I really couldn't answer specifically, other than the fact that at the time that we were working on it, we actually, if you remember, there was concerns about the units being too close and too many together. So what we did is expanded it out and still was able to break a lot of the bigger units because we had a lot of 6-unit buildings, if you remember, I believe. And so what we did is broke them down into 5s and then provided a 10-foot separation between those. And what we did is expanded the layout out. And it had to come out even more because of the fire district's meeting with them and wanting to require 26-foot wide streets throughout the whole thing, where before, when we submitted it originally, we had alleys, which were 15-foot wide. And so since that time, we were required to expand it out to where we had full 26-foot wide streets throughout the whole development. No alleys anymore. They're all full 26-foot wide streets.
I totally agree with keeping the streets wider because otherwise we run into parking issues. But I do see the difference between the plan in December and the one that's today is that you kept the same number of units, but you also, I see you did take the advice and you broke up the clusters of about 10 or so units. But by doing that, you sacrificed some of the open space that you had in that original plan. In fact, the rear setback is greatly reduced. I think you had 66 feet or 60-something feet of rear setback. And now in your new drawing, it's between 47 and 51. So in order to, I guess, accommodate some of the feedback regarding the clusters, the wider streets, and then also that separate entrance, you didn't want to sacrifice the number of units, but you gave up some land that was there. So my comments still stand from that meeting that the density still seems to be high. And I know that you mentioned, or it was mentioned at the meeting, that this is similar to, I remember this because it stood out, you know, we heard it was like, well, this is similar to what we have in Cottleville. And I said, well, we're not Cottleville here, we're Wildwood. So we want to be unique in how we do things here. We don't want to replicate what's elsewhere. So is there anything at all? I mean, I guess that would really be for the department, since this is a public hearing, the department will take this feedback into consideration when they provide their report. But I would look at the density as still a concern of mine there, given the lot size that we have there. I'll hold back on additional comments to see if there's any other the commission wants to say.
Anything else from the commission? Commissioner Helfrey?
Well, the reason I asked for those maps was because of my concern for the density as well, but just from a practical thing, the houses on the back part of the development, as you have it drawn, the fronts of them would be looking into would they be looking into the backyards of the homes and the reserves?
They'll be actually looking at a wooded area because we're saving the trees along the north and along the western edge of this development. We're saving all the natural vegetation that's along through there to act as a good screening buffer for our residents and the residents of the reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any speaker cards on this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. We have at this time one speaker card.
Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Cummer.
Tim Cummer, Ward 8, 2460 Atherton Road. I live very close to this project. Like I said, I've lived here for decades, so I understand the road structure and the infrastructure of Wildwood. First off, nobody's touched on this, but I'm aware that the council will understand. Pond Elementary School is right here, but the bus depot is also right there. So my kids went to this school, Pond, and if you ever are at this intersection in the morning, there's 30 buses that line up at that light. So these buses are crucial to get them out, get them moving, pick up the kids in a very timely fashion so they can get them to school on time. So I hate to even see what the reserves is going to do to this amount of traffic with the buses here and all the teachers and drop-offs, students. Going to be a really cluster here. And I don't even know how the buses are going to get out. And when you add, let's just say, 250 cars to the mix in the morning, it's going to be crazy. That's a very narrow road. There are no shoulders on either side. And Mr. Vunich can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a pretty erosion prone area as well. I do appreciate him keeping the line of trees. That's a great idea. I've always fought for those on all the developments here in Wildwood, and that most of them just tear them down because it's easier for them to build with no trees. But I have to say, it's just way too dense. There's just way too many. I don't understand all these developers that just come to Wildwood and just want to pound in every possible home that they can. And I know people get excited to be able to move to Wildwood, but once they're there, they figure out that it's way too dense. There's nothing. There's just no green space. But my biggest problem is the density and how you're going to get these people out. Because, like I said, I invite you to just go sit at the light, because that's a crazy light. Either way you turn, like if you're turning from Manchester to try to go to Eureka, that light gives you 7 cars. And I've watched the buses try to go out, and they get 10 at a time. So if you add 250 cars to that mix, there's no way the buses will get out. So I just think you just need to keep looking and maybe try to figure out something with this.
All right, thank you for your comments. Any?
Mr. Chair, no additional speaker cards from the room. Don't see any hand raised from the public on Zoom. Mr. Bourne Commissioner Bourne has raised his hand.
All right. Commissioner Bourne?
Yeah, I saw in the Lombardo presentation that there was drawings and renderings for the front of the villas. Is there one that shows the garage side that we'll see from those streets? An elevation drawing that shows the garage side.
Yeah, we do not have a rendering at this time, but can certainly get that, and we'll can work to do that, to provide that.
We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
And as a point of order, the reserves will have direct access to the roundabout, so they will not have to use Manchester Road to exit that subdivision. All right. If no one else has any other comments, then yes.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right, motion by Commissioner Helfrey. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Clayton. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, public hearing is closed. Next on the agenda, PZ 5-26.
Easy 5-26, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. A request for the consideration of amendments to certain existing requirements being set forth in Chapter 415.030 definitions, Chapter 415.400 sign regulations general, Chapter 415.410 sign regulations for FP, NU, and all R districts, and Chapter 415.420 sign regulations for all C and M districts, which would remove windows, signs, or clings from their current exemption status and thereby require these representations to be reviewed and authorized under a set of new rules to ensure compatibility with the city's dark sky efforts, town center and neighborhood design standards and architectural guidelines, and its outdoor lighting requirements of the zoning ordinance, Chapter 415.450, all wards.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has provided for your consideration tonight information relating to the public hearing. The public hearing speaks to a set of signs that are governed by what is described as exclusions. meaning that they do not have the number of requirements that typical signage in the city of Wildwood has relative to size, height, location, etc. These exclusions generally focus on governmental type of signs, signs that acknowledge construction of buildings and their date. But one of those exclusions is window signage. And as you know, commercial businesses have a great deal of window signage of late. Typically, almost every business now has an open sign or open signs. Other businesses, such as liquor stores, have information relating to product. The list can go on, but from the standpoint of the city, this became an issue of late as more and more of those signs use light emitting diodes, LEDs, and their brightness is becoming more of an issue relative to adjoining residential areas. With the signs being treated as exclusions, we do not have the set of tools to ensure that when window signs or window clings are installed, they're done in accordance with best practices and how we regulate other representations of a similar nature. So tonight, the department has prepared for your consideration potential regulations relating to window signs or window clings. Those regulations are identified on page 3 of the report that was provided. Key amongst those regulations relate to size, 30% of the total glass or glazed area, transparency, again for public safety purposes, duration for temporary versus permanent, maintenance, and then importantly, illumination, and then finally content. All signage is intended to be neutral content or content neutral. As you know from our discussion of the U.S. Supreme Court decision back in the early 2020s. But this is more so just to ensure that the signage actually represents something that's available at the place of business or provided at the place of business. So tonight we are presenting this set of proposed regulations to address a sign that's probably in many ways more used than any other type in the city of Wildwood, but is the least regulated in the city of Wildwood. I would conclude by noting that the discussion relative to window signs or window clings began with our Economic Development Committee of City Council and a desire to better understand the implications of those types being exclusions, and then if there is a best practice that can be employed. So tonight we're here to accept comments from the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the public. And then, as you know, the department will prepare an information report with recommendation to present to the commission for consideration. And at this time, the department will conclude its presentation, and if there are any questions or comments, they're certainly welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Any discussion from the commission? Do we have any speaker cards on this?
Mr. Chair, the department has not received any speaker cards, and currently there are no hands raised on Zoom
Okay.
regarding this matter.
Commissioner Helfrey?
So, Mr. Vunich, I'm just, for this one that says transparency, so 4 to 7 feet to the clings can only go at the tops of the windows. Is that correct?
Generally speaking, the intent is to keep a clear view for police purposes. And as you know, most of the police ride in cars, so it's adjusted to fit the height of the vehicle and the police officer sitting in it. So we'll take a look at that just to make sure we've got it right. We did some research, and that's the number that kept appearing more frequently than not, so we'll check.
Okay, and they're supposed to be temporary, not permanent.
Actually, there can be permanent window signage. temporary for like sales or other special events, that's to be treated a little differently. But permanent window signage is a component of many of our businesses at this time and would continue to be in the future.
Okay, so I guess I'm not understanding why it says temporary clean. So, oh, so you can have temporary and permanent.
Correct.
Got it, okay. So I guess I have a question then on Clarkson Road. There is a store up by Trader Joe's. I don't know, Garbanzo or whatever it's supposed to be called. And it's not open yet, and they have the cling all over the windows. And I've seen those clings in other businesses where they are, you can see through them, but they use them kind of as a tent against the sun. Those are not allowed, correct?
Well, at this time, as I say, most of our window signage is governed under an exclusion and has just a very limited set of requirements. The intent would be to remove the interpretive nature of our reviews as a city and have tangible requirements. What the department would say in response to your question is, we prefer not to see them because the window clings or window signage that fill the entire glazed area exceed the square footage, even in the exclusion clause relative to these types of signs.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich.
Anything else? All right, motion to close the public hearing. All right, motion by Commissioner Rubis, second by Commissioner Helfrey. Any discussion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, PZ 6-26 A and B, Mr. Vunich.
PZ 6-26A, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. A request for the change in zoning district designations of 3 properties from the NU non-urban residence district to the C8 planned commercial district with conditional use permits, which would then accommodate drive-through facilities in conjunction with their authorized and permitted uses northeast and southeast corners of State Route 109 at their intersections with Main Street and northwest corner of the intersection of State Route 109 and Manchester Road. Street addresses 17191 and 17194 Main Street and 2521 Highway 109, St. Louis County. Locator numbers 23V121417, 23V121-426, and 24V430097. Town Center Regulating Plan Designation Workplace State Route 100 and 109 District. Proposed uses, all permitted uses of the Town Center Workplace District, including the allowance for drive-through facilities in association with the grouping of applicable types of them, wards 1 and 8. PZ 6-26B, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. Requests to amend the zoning district designations of 3 properties from the C8 Planned Commercial District to the amended C8 Planned Commercial District with conditional use permits, which would then accommodate drive-through facilities in conjunction with their authorized and permitted uses, southwest corner of State Route 109 and at its intersection with Main Street, and southwest corner of the intersection of State Route 109 and Manchester Road. Street addresses 2431 and 2601 Highway 109 and 17120 Manchester Road. St. Louis County. Locator numbers 23V110022, 24V430185, and 24V430163. Town Center Regulating Plan Designation Workplace State Route 100 and 109 District. Proposed uses, all permitted uses of the Town Center Workplace District, including the allowance for drive-through facilities in association with the grouping of applicable types of them, wards 1 and 8.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, before the department begins a presentation relative to the matters just prescribed by Mr. Newberry into the record, I do want to identify what you've received in terms of a packet. There is a primer that provides background relative to this particular set of requests. Primer kind of talks to or identifies, I should say, the background associated with it and ultimately the nature of the current request. Along with that information, the department has provided you the posting I do want to note that relative to all 6 sites, the mailings were done within 3,000 feet of each of them to ensure that there was dispersion and an opportunity for residents to speak to the components of the request. Also, there is a map that's been prepared by the city relative to the 6 sites that are the subject of the 2 hearings tonight. And then finally, there is the map and letter of recommendation relating to the first step and what is described as a 3-step process relative to certain sites that have frontage onto Route 109 and Route 100. So hopefully we've given you information to kind of provide the parameters of tonight's discussion and the intent of the 2 hearings. First and foremost, as you all are aware, there are 3 standing committees in association with our city council. 2 of them have been part of the city's leadership structure since almost the time of incorporation. That is the Administration and Public Works Committee and then the Planning and Parks Committee. More recently, within the last 10 years, a 3rd standing committee was added, and that's the Economic Development Committee. As with all of the standing committees of City Council, there are 8 members on each of them. So oftentimes, certain council members serve on multiple committees. The Economic Development Committee was formed to ensure that, first and foremost, existing businesses were retained, new businesses were recruited, and when possible, to spur economic development activity in our town center area. And I limit it to town center because, again, as you know, other than a few certain zonings completed by St. Louis County prior to 1995, such as Clayton and Strecker Roads, that intersection, all commercial development is intended to be in our town center area. Within the town center area, it is limited to the downtown district, the workplace district, and in certain instances, in a live-work scenario, the neighborhood general district. The properties that have been identified in the first step of this process, which was creating a subset of the workplace district, are the 10 that front onto Route 109 or Route 100. That's shown on the map. The subset that was developed changed the list of permitted uses that could be considered, not granted by right, but could be considered to include quick service restaurant type facilities. As you know, quick service restaurants were allowed, but without drive-throughs in the workplace district. And many of these properties are workplace district. In fact, all. So we took the first step and identified 10 properties that would be potentially suitable for certain uses with drive-through facilities. The second step, as prescribed by the Economic Development Committee, was to begin a pre-zoning process, and that's the step tonight. The pre-zoning process is intended to accept comments from the commission and the public to see if these sites truly are suitable for quick serve type of activities. And if so, to create the framework for a future development proposal or proposals to be submitted upon them. And that is the third step. Creating the subset of the workplace district and identifying 10 properties, step 1. The pre-zoning, step 2. Tonight, step 3 will be when a development entity is interested in one or more of the properties. That is the time that the Planning and Zoning Commission, the public, and ultimately City Council will be able to basically gauge is a successful utilization of the property or not. As commission members, you may ask, how do you pre-zone, particularly to the C8 Plan Commercial District, or in an existing C8 Plan Commercial District, with a for a conditional use permit. It's not as easy as having a plan in front of you to develop that site-specific ordinance or permit. So the intent, if this set of requests moves forward, is to create a general framework. And as a development proposal is submitted, ensure that that proposal meets that general framework and ultimately has the key elements that were described when the subset of the workplace district was identified. And in your report from the letter of recommendation as part of the packet, those are identified on the bottom of page 5 and the top of page 6. Certainly, the unknown is not something necessarily you as commission members, the department, or anyone in the public likes. But as has been described, particularly during the pandemic and thereafter, convenience was lacking in the city of Wildwood relative to many of our commercial establishments. We heard from residents, we heard from elected and appointed officials. And so tonight we're trying to address it the best possible way in an open forum to hear people's opinion and see if we're headed on the right direction or not. Certainly, if the commission does not support the 6 properties being pre-zoned or designated with a conditional use permit, then individually, at some point, a development interest may bring them in and would not be disqualified due to the action relative to these petitions tonight. With that, I'll conclude because I believe we have a number of speakers that would like to address this matter. But again, I just want to emphasize that as we started this process with the workplace subset, the next natural step, at least as described through our economic development efforts, was to do the pre-zoning. And that is what we're here tonight to discuss. Ultimately, if there is a proposal, it will come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately City Council. And with that, the department will conclude its presentation. And if there are any questions or comments, we'll do our very best to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich. Is any discussion from the commission?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Helfrey?
Just for a point of clarification, for the drawing that has the numbers on it, we were talking about 6 properties and there are 8 properties numbered. So I just want to make sure I know which ones we're talking about. We're talking about 6, 7, and 8 and 1 and 2. Is that correct?
So there's 2 maps. The first map, the representation, shows the 6 properties that are the subject of tonight's request. There's not a title associated with that, but this is the first map after
Okay.
the notice,
Okay.
the public notice.
So on the next map that's numbered, it's not number 5 and number 6.
Correct. It's
Thanks.
1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8.
Perfect.
That
Thank you.
constitutes the 6 properties.
Thank you, Mr. Vinich.
Because, and for clarification, 5 and 6 are the 2 gas stations, correct?
Correct. And as you know, when we were talking about the subset of the workplace district of the regulating plan, we look at everything from a perspective of the present, but also the future. And so as with gas stations over the years, they are redevelopment opportunities. And what we're finding is financial institutions are as well. So we went ahead and designated existing uses with the idea that if there is a redevelopment opportunity, we wouldn't necessarily limit it without at least considering it.
Commissioner Rubis?
Is it the intent that all these properties will be governed by a conditional use permit?
Ultimately, all properties will have a CA plan commercial district with a conditional use permit. So if you want to kind of liken it, you've got a pair of pants and you've got a belt on it, and now you put some suspenders as well.
All right, Mayor Garitano?
Yes, I have a couple of comments, but I think I would be interested in first hearing public comment
All right.
for the public hearing
All right.
before we have any discussion, because we might hear something good
Mhm.
that we might want to talk.
All right, well, in that case, yeah, we'll go ahead and bring the speaker cards forward.
Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Mrs. Donaldson, excuse me.
Mr. Chair, again, 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for representative of a group of 5 or more. I'll do my best to keep track for you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vernich.
Hi, I'm Debbie Donaldson. I live in Canterbury. It feels like I'm here constantly trying to defend our area from this sort of development. Apartments, it's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's hard.
sorry.
I can hear you, but I don't think
Okay.
it's going through the speaker.
So I'm concerned. I've sat through some of the Zoom meetings. Developer comments and items I read from some of the emails that were sent. Low rent district, one said he was raised in the low rent district in Chesterfield. Are we considered the low rent district in Wildwood? Really? I didn't know there was a low rent district in Chesterfield. Second of all, we should have known something like this would be built because of those lots sitting there. No, I didn't. Because when I moved to Wildwood 6.5 years ago, there was the promise that Wildwood had going on that there would never be drive-throughs ever. And now, all of a sudden, these are being considered. I feel betrayed. Wildwood promised and was founded upon no drive-throughs. My daughter-in-law was raised in Westridge Oak. When I told her in January, celebrating her birthday, what was proposed, her reaction was visceral while we were in an Italian restaurant, Mia Sorella. She went, "What?" And she said, "Oh my God, Wildwood said they would never do that. Never." As most of you know, I've said it before. I'm in real estate. My brokerage had a Chesterfield planner come to our Tuesday meeting a couple weeks ago. And it was very interesting. The planner mentioned that car washes are now all the rage. We already have 2 at 100 and 109. Why do we need a third? Second of all, fast food, she said, is carefully planned, and it's mostly in the valley. She said they consider vehicle stacking. It's very important. I deal with traffic circles constantly. I've had my car hit on a traffic circle, and it's not fun. And we almost got hit the other day. So how does that work? MoDOT won't allow curb cuts on 109, so they're going to enter from Main Street and Canberry Lane on the traffic circles. That doesn't seem very safe to me or very practical. And you've got new homes going in across from us. I understand change happens. I just heard Mayor Garitano say that we want to be unique. So stop this rezoning, for God's sake. If Austin can stay weird, Wildwood can stay wild. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Mr. Latham.
Mark Latham, 2421 Larksong Drive, Ward 8. We've got a real problem on 109 right now. Well, the roundabouts aren't helping. Now we're going to dump more traffic on them. We're talking about some additional developments. If I'm not mistaken, the recent accidents have increased a lot on 109, plus the amount of accidents that's going on in the roundabouts. So we've got a walking, if you come out on Main Street, there's a walking path, and Canberry, there's a walking path. So you're going to add that, and then people trying to get out on Main Street. I had a neighbor that sat for 4 minutes because people don't yield on 109 at the roundabouts. For some reason, there was no, for lack of a better term, training on how to use the roundabouts, because everybody coming in has yield signs and nobody yields. So this is going to only add make things worse. And they're talking about other developments being built. We've got a low water problem on top of it anyway. Now we're going to add more density. So there's something needs to be changed. We're asking you, please don't allow this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
The next speaker is Mr. Donaldson.
Hello, I'm Rob Donaldson. I live with Mrs. Donaldson in Cambry. What I wanted to do is touch on one of the items having to do with the entrance into Main Street, right from both of those properties on the right and the left. Just as this is like the traffic circle, but this is 109, and the reserve is over there. Is that you're going to come around here, have to go down.
Can you, sir, you got to stay at the microphone.
Sorry, go down Main Street, go down Main Street, and you get to turn right or left. But just as Mark said, there's a walkway there, but just into that onto Main Street, they now put a boulevard in there. So there's just a short period of time or short distance where you've got to turn right to go into the car wash, which is going to attract
Stay close to
a lot of people, sorry, or a lot of cars. And then you've got McDonald's on the left, which was in the plan before. I was recently at a Wildwood drive-through, the Starbucks, and I was the 17th in line. And I asked when I got up to the window, how far do these cars stack up? Because, sometimes all the way back to the stop sign, which was I was at 17. That must have been about 30. So now think about 30 cars stacking up. You got McDonald's on one side and you've got a car wash on the other on a Saturday morning where everybody wants to wash their cars and grab breakfast sandwiches. I just think it's going to be a real crash situation there. It's going to be a plug up opportunity. 24/7, no, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity for a big traffic just hang up there and the accidents that are going to happen. And as somebody mentioned before, just the other day, I was coming home and going around the traffic circle
1 minute.
above Main Street. And so I had the right of way because I'm in the circle, and somebody comes down 109 at about 45 miles an hour, doesn't even think to stop, doesn't yield, as they said. And then so I had to stop and honk my horn, and they looked at me like, what are you doing? So not everybody knows it's just a big dangerous spot. And to put two drive-throughs right there in a residential entrance, basically, Main Street on your right, Cambry on your left, I just think it's a bad idea. So I ask you to consider that in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
The next speaker is Mr. Comer.
I get as much as he wants. I mean, for every different thing. Yeah.
Tim Comer, Ward 8, 2460 Atherton Road. I live super close to both these outlets. I agree with all the previous speakers. It's a really bad idea. I'm going to speak a lot about the car wash. I was in that industry for about 12 years, and I can assure you that this will be the biggest eyesore that Wildwood has ever had. I know where Mr. Beatty lives, and I can promise you, at 7 o'clock, when they turn those vacuums on, you will hear them until 10 o'clock at night. I promise you, I will hear them at my house. It's just part of the system. We do have two good car washes here. Mr. Bosworth's best friend, one of his good friends, Phil Hurlebut, owns Auto Spa in Ellisville. That's top. So we should all drive up there and use his. And it's a dangerous intersection. Nobody in Wildwood really knows how to navigate these roundabouts. They think that once they get into the turning section that they own both lanes. And that's just not how that works. And I honk at people all the time. They, give me the dirty finger, whatever, but I usually follow them up to the next light at Taylor Road and roll my window down and explain to them how the roundabout works. And they roll their window back up and they probably do it the very next day. That's just how it operates here. And we do have a big speeding problem in Wildwood. I've addressed this with Captain Mundell for years, and I've invited him to my house. I've invited Mr. Garitano to my house, and he has come to my house, and he's seen that there's a speeding problem. And once again, I can give you my camera footage and I can show it to you. There's a big speeding problem. It's a big speeding problem on Etherton. And eventually, if Main Street ever does get opened up on Crestview Drive, this will be just a disaster area. And McDonald's draws a lot of customers, and I know that McDonald's wants to go in next to BP. I just don't see a good entrance, and I don't see a good exit. And for those businesses to even be successful, you have to be able to
1 minute.
shuffle these people in and out as fast as possible. That's the way they're set up. They're a fast food restaurant. Unfortunately, I personally agree, if you're going to have a fast food restaurant in Wildwood, the perfect spot for it would be next to Larry's, because there's no houses around there. That's where it should be. There's not a lot of traffic on that road. Be ideal. And unfortunately, whoever the guy is that bought the old Jack in the Box, we need to run him out of Wildwood. He's been waiting for a part for 2 years. I would fabricate him the part. I would help him.
All right, that's time.
Okay. It's just a bad idea.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair, the next speaker is Ms. Gallo.
I'm going to read this just to get through it for time's sake. Mr. Mayor, City Council members.
Name and address, please.
Oh, so sorry. Doreen Gallo, 17138 Canberry Lane, Wildwood, Missouri. Thank you for this opportunity to address you today. I am a resident of Wildwood residing on Canberry Lane. I am also a board member of the Canberry Homeowners Association. In 2004, I purchased my townhome in Canberry because we recognized the vision Wildwood was promoting, a rural suburban environment with a town center serving as the community's hub. I strongly oppose the proposed 2 projects, a McDonald's drive-through and a car wash located at the corners of Main Street and 109. These developments do not align with the character of our community and would have detrimental effects. I recently discovered that the McDonald's at Lamp and Lantern operates 24 hours a day. This constant traffic flow and potential for odors from the establishment would disrupt the tranquility of our quiet residential neighborhood. There are already 2 car washes within a short distance of this proposed new one, raising concerns about its purpose. Is it intended to drive out the existing businesses? The location of these projects is highly questionable. The city and state invested significant resources in constructing roundabouts at Canberry and 109 to facilitate traffic flow and reduce accidents, which were prevalent when there was a traffic light at that intersection. By adding 2 drive-throughs to the entrance of Main Street, you risk creating a hazardous traffic situation. If you had consulted with the homeowners who will be directly impacted by this entrance, we would inform you that they are already considerable risk attempting to navigate the roundabout and cross 109 to enter Main Street. Adding 2 businesses at the entrance will exacerbate the problem, leading to accidents and congestion in all directions. During a recent YouTube council meeting, one of the developers humorously remarked about the neighboring property's failure to conduct due diligence when purchasing adjacent to a commercial lot. Indeed, I did take the necessary precautions. Wildwood had designated the outlots as zoned for professional office or bank establishments with drive-through services, creating a professional atmosphere with business hours. The city's decision to identify 8 locations within a 1-mile stretch of 109 as acceptable drive-through location is perplexing. It is as if Wildwood wants to transform this stretch into the Las Vegas of Wildwood. While I imagine some point there will be a business on these two corners, I believe the city and developers can find a business that would be more conducive and a better fit for all surrounding neighborhoods. I wish the Economic Development Committee would allocate more efforts towards placing businesses in the town center and along Old Manchester Road as originally planned. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
The next speaker is Ms. Bush.
Hello, I'm Krista Bush and I live at 2508 Killaire Lane in Canberry with my husband Craig. I am here to talk about my concerns about the rezoning of the two properties flanking Main Street at 109. My biggest concern is traffic. I travel out Main Street to 109 South to 44 Monday through Friday to get to work. And whenever I approach that Main Street roundabout, I usually wait there somewhere between 1 and 4 minutes to get onto it. And so there's already a delay for me before we talk about the additional homes being built by McKelvey and potentially additional traffic entering Main Street to service these two businesses. Rob Donaldson talked about the boulevard, and that is a very small area there where traffic would have to cross to get into a business on the north side of Main Street, and it would cross over traffic coming out Main Street. So my car going out probably have to stop to let these cars cross over to get into that business. And then I don't know, I mean, depending on how well they deal with traffic stacking, we could have lots of cars building up on Main Street, even out into the roundabout or out into 109 that want to use those businesses and are trying to get in and out of them. I know that one of the business proposals, the McDonald's business proposal, I was able to listen online. Thank you for letting us do that because it was helpful just to learn about what these businesses are
1 minute.
are proposing. They think that traffic can enter off or exit off onto Canberry Lane to get out, but I'm concerned that traffic will actually use Canberry Lane as a cut through and go up and maybe come across on Lark Song or even my street, Killaire Lane, and then come back down Main Street. And I don't want to see traffic being able to use our residential streets to get around. So those are my biggest issues with this rezoning. I'm hoping that you will not allow rezoning of those particular properties for drive-through access. One other comment, in terms of 109 itself, it's getting busier all the time. These new business or these new developments that are going in, I'm happy about the McKelvey development. I think it's going to be beautiful. And I like the fit. I think it's a good fit for our area, but it is increasing traffic on 109 that's already getting busier at the roundabout on Manchester, as well as the roundabout in between the roundabout at Manchester and Main Street. There's traffic stacking already. Thank you for your
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I made a mistake. Miss Gallo is a trustee of the HOA and she can have up to 5 minutes.
Oh.
So if she'd like to come back up for her extra 2 minutes, my apologies.
All right.
Mr. Chair, that was the last speaker card in the room here in the council chambers. I do have a hand on Zoom.
Okay.
I believe it's Miss Link. I'll promote them. You'll just give her a moment to.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Lynn Link, Ward 6. I think there couldn't be worse spots for roundabouts than these two spots. So the average drive-through gets 700 to 1,000 cars per day. The average McDonald's has 200 cars per hour. With having the reserve empty directly out onto the roundabout, you're going to have all those drivers, all those delivery trucks with those people who may not, they're not from Wildwood, they're not familiar with our roundabouts. And you're going to have young drivers going to the McDonald's, going there, not familiar with roundabouts at all. And then if they're coming from other areas, they're going to have to probably change lanes in the roundabouts. So that's an issue. And also, I would think that it would also be an issue with drive-through, with car washes, because especially in winter, when cars could still be dripping in water, you have the potential, especially on a bridge, which is more likely to freeze, of increasing the chance that ice would be forming in that areas. Again, I don't think it's a good fit. I don't want to go over everything that everybody's already said about it, but I really think it is a bad idea, especially to put the roundabouts right there. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
there.
But the roundabouts are already there.
I'm sorry, not there. I apologize. I mean to have the drive-throughs right at the roundabout. Thank you for correcting me, Mr. Beatty.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, as I mentioned, no additional speaker cards in the room. I don't see any hands raised on Zoom currently as well.
Commissioner Rubis.
Just as a point of clarification, the two outlots that are in the Main Street crossing area, they were commercial lots when the original plan was presented. Was it only restricted to professional or office buildings?
Well, just to give a bit of background, Commissioner Rubis, prior to Main Street crossing being submitted by Payne Family Homes, the west side of Etherton Road, the area that's part of Main Street, was actually downtown district, and the remainder was workplace district. And the intent was actually to have that site be a commercial center of some type. Ultimately, as we all know, retail, service, restaurant, the whole landscape has changed, and brick and mortar stores are not something that gets built. And if they do get built, the likelihood of success seems less and less each year due to the internet sales, et cetera. So when Payne Family Homes made a proposal for residential, it was a proposal that the city council thought was appropriate, as well as this commission and the department. However, we did retain the workplace district along Route 109. And quite simply, it's because the amount of traffic on Route 109 and the character of the roadway corridor doesn't necessarily lend itself well to residential uses, particularly the town center type that are on smaller lots and have, let's say, I guess, less yard area and less protection from the characteristics of a roadway right-of-way. So we retain the workplace. The workplace district has a long list of uses. The two that were mentioned certainly could be types that could be considered there. Financial institutions with drive-through facilities and professional, medical, dental, and general office. But there are also other things. A fast food restaurant could go there up to recently, but without a drive-through facility. So there's a range of uses. We select the uses based upon ultimately the best plan and making sure that plan fits the site. And obviously, I don't think anyone on the departments of Public Works and Planning or the commission or city council wants to degrade the environment for our residents. We do our best to try to make it work. There's a lot of factors that go into it. Sometimes you miss one or two, but you certainly do your best.
Well, I didn't, a statement was made that Wildwood promised that this would only be used for professional or office buildings, and I just wanted to that was inaccurate.
She's absolutely correct. It could be used for that, but I know of no such report, at least one issued by the department or ultimately acted upon by the Planning and Zoning Commission that would limit it to such. There are good uses, but as I say, right now, the commercial component in the city struggles at times.
Mayor Garitano?
Director Vunich, you mentioned that these tonight, you call them pre-zonings. Why not just us handle these individually whenever that time comes when someone has some idea, and that way we can base it on a case-by-case basis versus doing as presented tonight?
That's certainly an option. I would have to defer to John Young, no offense to our acting city attorney, but the reason these items are before you is, again, the Economic Development Committee has been discussing pre-zoning of certain properties for months. Mr. Lee and I have been given the charge to kind of initiate that effort. That's the reason we're here tonight. Mr. Lee's come on screen. He may want to add more, Mr. Mayor, with your permission.
And I get that even with pre-zoning, because the drive-through aspect is a conditional use, then the discretion continues to remain with the city whether to approve or not.
Very much so.
Okay, but it seems like it's unless I'm wrong, it seems unconventional for us to do pre-zoning. We typically have these non-urban residence district lots, and then we just deal with them when that time comes that someone who owns that land or is willing to buy that land from a property owner presents their idea and comes to the city. So this seems a little bit more like a blanket approval, not approval, because obviously the conditional aspect remains. We have some discretion, but it just seems like we're kind of, jumping ahead compared to what we've done.
Well, certainly, Mr. Mayor, you're correct. This is out of the ordinary relative to our past practice in town center and elsewhere in the city. We generally wait for a proposal and then work from that proposal forward. As I say, we have a group of council members that are charged with basically doing the best they can to bring economic development and new uses in that vein to the city of Wildwood. I would just give you a footnote to all of this. When Andres Dewani was here and developed the town center plan, there was in his report a recommendation to pre-zone all of town center, so as the development community would not have to go through that step and spend months and months of time. Ultimately, when we took the draft plan out to the public, that was not an idea that they supported, and so we didn't do it.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes Wildwood unique, is that we didn't rezone, I think, compared to other areas. So I feel that's a protection that we have by handling it in an individual basis.
The best zoning is the zoning where you have something in front of you to work from. The public can see it. You as commission members can look at it, so to speak, touch it. And we as your staff can utilize it and compare it to all of our codes, regulations, and requirements. It's not to say this is a carte blanche approach. Certainly we have a set of protections that came in the first step of this process. Those would be the minimums. As I see it, and this is in our code already, you could actually pre-zone property, and what you do then is you hold a public hearing when the site development plan is submitted. The site development plan becomes the de facto rezoning request. And in the ordinance, you can guarantee that the site development plan isn't just a pass-through. you can deny a site development plan based upon noncompliance or other components that you find unacceptable. So again, I just want to assure everyone, this isn't like we're stepping back from the control that 30 plus years ago, the incorporators fought so hard to wrest from St. Louis County. All we're trying to do from the perspective of the department is to address economic development in a way that is least impactful but beneficial to our residents.
And I'll just make one comment on that. Personally, I liked the idea of pre-zoning just because of the simple fact that in the town center, every time we get one of these denser developments, it's usually coming from a non-urban tract. And then people are like, wait a minute, this was supposed to be non-urban. What are you doing making a dense housing? And no, it's part of the neighborhood general or neighborhood edge district, which allows denser zoning. And there's an inherent, after being on this board for almost 10 years now, almost every time there's a confusion there. And so that's why I kind of like the idea. But there's other comments. Commissioner Helfrey.
So first thing I'd like to say is thank you to everybody who came out and speaks about it. I took notes and I paid attention. We all pay attention up here. I would like to say that when, as a member of the Planning and Zoning Department, I was part of the Town Center Update Committee, and we got interrupted with that with the pandemic. And at that time, it was recognized that really drive-throughs really did serve a purpose, especially during the pandemic when we couldn't go and go do anything. Drive-throughs were kind of nice. We voted on it. We put it in the town center and it came back 50-50, pretty close to 50-50. Yes for them, no for them. And so we didn't have them. This came up a couple months ago and we talked about it. And Vicky said, I think we should have drive-throughs down Old Manchester Road, or at least have that in the workplace center. And the conversation was that let's try to keep it on this 109. So I will say, I listened to everything people said, and I drive 109 the other way. I go to work the other way. And I will say, I don't think MoDOT has it down. And so when my concern with all of this is the roundabouts and the getting in and out of these properties at the roundabout entrances in this neighborhood, which I would have never thought of. I don't live there, so I didn't. And I think that we would do a disservice if we don't really look at that and try to address that problem, because that the traffic will be a nightmare and the safety will be a nightmare. I will say though, that I think that the city of Wildwood does a very good job of putting parameters on people. And I would like to believe that if McDonald's went in, that we would not let them have a double lane drive-through with LED lights and yellow signs all over the place. I don't think that that's Wildwood. I don't think we would allow that. So my ask going forward is, before it comes back to us, I would like to know how we would address the lighting issues, the noise issues, the access issues, the traffic issues, specifically of the two lots. They were number 7 and 8. It looks like 1 and 2 might be off, and they would be okay because they're on the other side of 109 and on the other side of Old Manchester Road. I also would like to know for this lot number 3 and number 4, I know that that's the reserves over there, and I know that we've made the along 109 to be commercial lots, but I'm pretty sure that those people that would be buying in there probably, I'm concerned about having a drive-through right in front of that neighborhood as well. I mean, it just I don't know. It just seems like the traffic's gonna be a problem. So I'm asking that before this all comes back to us, that we have a little bit more concrete answers on those particular intersections. And for the record, I'm still for allowing drive-throughs down Old Manchester. So thank you, Mr. Vunich.
So again, this helped for you, lighting, noise, access, and traffic. or the four?
Yeah,
items?
specifically in that area, those two
Those two,
lots.
yeah.
And when I say noise, I know that we have a noise ordinance here in Wildwood, but I will tell you, my neighbor's lawn crew shows up at 7 o'clock every week. And I hear it, then the rest of the day it's lawnmowers. And you know, I'm okay with that, right? Because I mow my lawn too. But if it's gonna be something that is a lot of noise, like car washes or all the vacuums, I think that bears consideration. And the lighting all night long, if we are telling people in Wildwood, we want to address the night sky and the LED lights that we've worked so hard to contain. But if a building has lights all around it to say, hey, we're here, how does that affect all that?
Well, certainly to use the last example, I think it's kind of symbolic of how Wildwood treats particular developments. If the business is closed, there's really not a need to have all your lights on. The next item on the agenda is the electronic message center for the Monarch Fire Protection District. We created hours of operation.
Right.
Because on Wild Horse Creek Road, for example, you don't necessarily need to have a sign on when nobody's on the road. And that would hold true across all components of land use. If it's not necessary, why are you doing it?
Right. And the other, we say in here, we'll do landscape screening, but I also have seen many instances where somebody says they're going to do landscape screening and something dies, and then we are having to fight them to replace it. And so I would hope that we can just have some better answers than I feel like we don't have a lot of answers right now. And maybe that's me being not as informed as I should be, but I feel.
Well, from the department's perspective, long before we bring back an information report or reports with recommendations, I think you as a commission member and the others on the commission, as well as those that spoke tonight or attended the hearings, need the answer to those questions you identified. What is our approach to lighting relative to commercial businesses? What is our strengths and weaknesses relative to managing noise, access, and traffic? I'm going to defer to Mr. Brown, who is our Director of Public Works and City Engineer. Much of what you see out on Route 109 is a collaborative effort between the Department of Public Works here at the city and the Missouri Department of Transportation.
Right. Well, I would appreciate any answers you can get us, Mr. Rich. Thank you.
It can only help as we move forward with other properties to understand these are the strengths and weaknesses. These are the things we can control, and these are the things that sometimes, as you say, as a project ages, all those good ideas get left behind, or a few of them get left behind.
All right, Commissioner Jackson.
Mayor, did you want to say something? I could tell why it's fresh on your mind. I'll yield to you.
Always can't wait to say something, but I'll let Councilmember Marshall yourself speak.
Okay, so my comment is more of a statement. It's kind of an education. So Wildwood gets paid by a pool of taxes. So if a McDonald's came in, they can go across the line in another city and we share in that. I just wanted everyone to know. And because we're talking this came out of economic development. So also I'm going to tie this to the data center thing, right? So we got ahead of that, and Ms. Helfrey was really big on that. And that was a good thing. There are those that think that's good economic development. My company does a lot in the data center world, fiber optics and et cetera. So I got calls from people, would you educate me on what do we need this or that, city council, et cetera. So we were able to put it over in Chesterfield, right? In the industrial area, that's where it can go. So so that's a good thing that we're getting ahead of that, right? In this, I can see the economic development coming, but if you're going to attract a McDonald's or whatever, if you zone it in advance and say, hey, it's conducive to a drive-through. So I'm with the mayor on until it comes, just let sleeping dogs kind of lie. But I understand we've got now I see where things are coming from. The Economic Development Committee is tasking you, and then it's got to run through P&Z. So we might want to think about the communique on that before we have this happen. And oh, and my wife said, by the way, if you want to put her, she's with them on the submittal.
Oh,
FYI, I texted her. So anyway, thank you.
appreciate your wife's input, but
Well, you know, Stacy,
No.
you know, Stacy, Joe.
But again, I think this is the process. I appreciate the fact that people don't necessarily want to come up to a city hall on a Monday night
Great.
once a month, but government is participatory. If you sit back and things happen that you don't like, who are you going to blame? We post the site, we put it in the paper, we send out mailings to within 3,000 feet. We want you here because you're our best gauge of, is this right or is this wrong?
Thank you.
Councilman.
Sure. I just want to ask the question, Mr. Vunich. Economic development wants this to get pushed through for this overall zoning. How much quicker the development go through if the first pass of zoning is done? It me, it wouldn't make much more than a month difference. Is that
Actually, since the city council and planning and zoning commission went to meetings once a month, a typical zoning now takes anywhere from 4 to 6 months. And that's one that doesn't have certain controversy or delays. So it's a pretty substantial time frame if the properties at least have the fundamentals in place. So as the next step may just be a site plan or some refinement to the permit itself or the underlying zoning.
I just believe that there always going to be a lot of debate about a particular one. And I think trying to do all at one time is just creating more confusion on ones. I mean, I know we talked about banks, but we have like 4 empty banks in the city right now. So it's not like somebody's going to come in and drop a bank in there. And the same thing with professional office space. It's gone, you know. So in that particular case, I just think that maybe some purview, and I certainly understand how many months it takes, but I'm just not sure trying to get everything through and having half of the people against it, half the people in favor of, just to be able to say, well, now you could get through in 2 months versus 4 months, is really worth all that the confusion it might create. Just my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
And again, that's why the department is here. It wants to basically gauge if this is something we should proceed forward with or not. Certainly, I think at the end of day, an indefinite postponement or withdrawal as directed by the commission is an option. I still think before that action is taken, I think the comments deserve to be addressed, at least regarding the traffic and access out of Main Street onto Route 109 at the roundabout. It is as described. You know, I think the city needs to know that, as well as the Missouri Department of Transportation.
I will just say, I have a no vote of confidence for Missouri Department of Revenue with their driving.
You mean Missouri Department of Transportation?
Yeah, transportation, sorry, both of them. Hey, whatever. The Department of Transportation can't seem to get 109 right. And so if this woman is waiting 1 to 4 minutes to get out of her neighborhood, I don't know what she's going to do when the neighborhood well, I timed the light at 109 in Clayton, so I got you, girl. But I don't know what they're going to do when we have all of the other homes coming in, you know, that we want to come in. So, you know, the traffic is a huge thing.
Well, as you know, as part of every packet of information you get, as part of an information report through the letter of recommendation, we don't move forward without traffic studies or analyses. So we're looking at the circumstances to make sure. Is it in anyone's best interest for us to create traffic congestion? No. Is it in anyone's best interest to create an unsafe situation? No. We depend on experts. And what I'm finding is the driving public can sometimes befuddle experts.
All right, Mayor Garitano?
Yeah, just a quick comment. Hopefully this will wrap it up for us on this topic here. Back to the pre-zoning versus individual, I prefer the individual. I understand where economic development is coming from. But also, you know, when we're considering drive-throughs, I think that unique parcel, wherever it is, has to be looked at individually compared to other parcels. We have today about 12 drive-throughs in the city of Wildwood. gas stations that have car washes, the mobile. The Jack in the Box is closed right now. We have several banks. So the bank over at Village Plaza that just relocated, the Bank of Houston, the Bank of America site that's vacant, Lindell Bank, Panera. Panera, that's an interesting story, bread company. They used to be located where Schnucks is. And they basically had told Wildwood years ago that they had to find a location with a drive-through, otherwise they were leaving Wildwood. Because that's part of their business model. So fortunately, that worked out where they are today. They're able to stay. The Starbucks, PNC Bank, we've got the Electro Savings. So yeah, it adds up. We have several drive-throughs, but I do think we have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, because the way we would look at a lot here in the downtown district is going to be a lot different than what we look at a lot that's adjacent to a residential area in 109 or somewhere. So I would think that would make the best sense to just wait and see what proposal comes in, and then we can look at if there's conditions that have to be put in depending on where it is, so forth. It's just like what we saw with the multi-use development to the east of the movie theater. There's no residential adjacent to it. There's not much that anyone really next to it could comment about it, because the comment was generally very quiet. But it'd be a lot different if it was located next to a neighborhood on 109, because there would be people directly impacted next to it. So that's where I leave it at. And hopefully maybe the next item is going to be very similar discussion, and we keep moving. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Commissioner Rubis.
If a business wanted to come in, say Bank of America or Electro Credit Union, and they wanted to turn it into a fast food restaurant, they would have the right for drive-through, correct?
Not necessarily. For example, Electro Savings in that ordinance, that lot's limited to a financial institution with drive-through or a professional office, period. Nothing else. Bank of America is a different story. As you know, we have a drive-through in conjunction with Panera or Bread Company. That certainly is a drive-through as is. So that's an option. As I said, we looked out into the future and said, right now, financial institutions are not necessarily as stable as they once were. So that's why we identified certain properties for redevelopment.
Would that be across the street in that shopping center there? Those banking, I think it's Lindell Bank, where the central bank vacated. Is that got strictly a financial institution?
The location we looked at are the two lots that are in front of Village Plaza. We did not go that second tier to Village Plaza because around it is residential.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lee, I don't know if I ever let you speak earlier. Did you still want to say something?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair. Appreciate that. And I want to say thank you to everybody that came out tonight. And just to give a little bit more context behind the request, and it was really revolving around the fact that the conditional use permit, originally those properties that were marked the workplace SR 100 109 district, sub-district now, do have the ability to have a drive-through facility. From that discussion, the idea was, let's try to make that even a smaller pie and potentially have not necessarily fast food, but the reason why pre-zoning was a discussion topic, obviously to pass on to the commission, was more so to set criteria up front so that we could avoid proposals, because right now we do have the ability, there is a conditional use permit that's associated with it, but it is allowed, at least more than it was, to avoid the quick service type restaurants and possibly more so focus in on the limited service or fast casual restaurants, something that would be more like a Chipotle or a High Point that's not necessarily drive-through centric. It also focuses on dine in. So the idea was to try to set that parameter up front so that the city wouldn't be bombarded with potential applications from the likes of something like McDonald's or the Taco Bells of the world. That was the original intent from the Economic Development Committee. And the other thing was just adding in that if they were to pre-zone, making sure that the architectural component was strictly adhered to so that a lot of these fast food restaurants that would come in, they aren't able to budge at all or move the needle, if you will, for how they design their establishment. They have a one, cookie cutter approach, or this is how we build it. The idea was originally to set up a expectation up front that you're going to have to build it unique, like Wildwood expects for most of our developments. So in that case, it was to try to weed out some of these quick service proposals that may come in the future and really kind of hamper in and, nail down some of the more highly desirable, limited service restaurants is more the better word for it. But just wanted to add that piece. And then also, given the conditional use permit still being there, that would obviously serve as the trigger point to ensure that we could, there would still be a large amount of review that would take place. But just wanted to add that background. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lee. Anything else?
Motion to close the public hearing.
All right, motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Clayton. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, public hearing is closed. Thank you, everyone. All right. That is the last of the public hearings. So now PZ 3-26, Mr. Newberry.
PZ 3-26, Monarch Fire Protection District 13725 Olive Boulevard, Chesterfield, Missouri 63017. A request for a conditional use permit, CUP, in the NU Non-Urban Residence District for a 3-acre tract of land that is located on the south side of Wild Horse Creek Road at its intersection with Etherton Road. Street address is 1304 Wild Horse Creek Road and 18304 Wild Horse Creek Road, Unit A. St. Louis County locator numbers 19W 510215 and 19W 510194. Proposed use of permanent electronic message center, EMC, to be operated in association with the existing fire station, Ward 1.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you may recall, the public hearing on this matter was held on March 2nd of this year. And at the conclusion of the public hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission authorized the preparation of a letter of recommendation in draft form in lieu of the intermediary step of the information report with recommendation of the department. So tonight you are looking and reviewing a draft of the letter of recommendation relative to this electronic message center. As you know, several years ago, the city of Wildwood granted a conditional use permit for a new fire station at the intersection of Etherton Road and Wild Horse Creek Road. The fire station was to replace an older facility still on Wild Horse Creek Road, but west of Route 109. The older facility was such that an ambulance could not be stationed there to serve the residents of Wildwood and Chesterfield from that location. The new station obviously addressed that issue and certainly adds more equipment and greater services. As part of the development of that site, the fire district installed a monument sign with electronic message centers. The fire district was advised by the department that those types of signs are prohibited and that signage is done under a separate permit, not as part of the site development plan or improvement plans. Ultimately, the fire district agreed and cooperated with the city and did not operate it till such time that either electronic message centers were authorized as a type of signage in Wildwood, and then, depending on the requirements, granted the right. Tonight, the department has prepared for you a favorable recommendation relative to the electronic message center at the Monarch Fire Protection District. As you know, when we did the research relative to electronic message centers, we had Randy Burkett of Reed Burkett Lighting Design help us understand the components we needed to manage to ensure that they were least impactful, but certainly would serve the purpose for the fire district. Those requirements form the core of this particular report and letter of recommendation, and they are reflected in attachment B of the conditions. The attachments reflect the type of sign that's in place and establishes the parameters for the operation of the center. The parameters, as I've mentioned, reflect the core components that now are part of our sign regulations, plus to address other instances relating to landscaping, Kelvin, etc. So tonight, there is a favorable letter of recommendation before you for consideration and action. And the department is available for any comments or questions regarding this particular matter. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vinich. Commissioner Jackson,
Motion to approve is presented.
Commissioner Clayton. All right. So I'm just going to bring this up. About 10 years ago, or maybe even longer than that, I was out mountain biking with a friend or with a guy who taught at Lafayette. And he had been complaining about Lafayette's inability to get one of these 10 years ago or more. And so I'm not a big fan of the ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And so I don't know. I'm not as gung-ho about approving this until Lafayette gets theirs.
Well, I can give context, at least in terms of both of your statements. First, Fire District was very gracious and did not operate it to create a real issue. They kept
And
it-
I appreciate that.
They've kept it off. They have no signage other than, I believe, a wall sign on the front that designates the station number, et cetera. Secondly, the Lafayette High School leadership has issued an RFP, a request for proposals, to the signage community, and they are working on it as we speak.
All right. I mean, I'm happy to approve it, but I kind of want to, my personal opinion is to table it until Lafayette gets it, but
Not
but
knowing.
I won't hold it up any more than that.
They've been the fire district has been patient, and certainly as soon as we have something submitted from Lafayette High School, you'll be the first to know.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus,
Yes.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
No.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, request from Lombardo Homes, Mr. Vinich.
Oh, sorry. The script. The item was a request from the Lombardo Homes of Missouri LLC for Research Park Drive, Suite 130, St. Charles, Missouri 63304-5638. That is seeking a waiver to the city requirements that all large lot single-family subdivisions install packaged wastewater treatment plants in areas of the Wildwood community not currently served by public sanitary sewers, which, if granted, would thereby allow the use of individual household wastewater treatment systems for service to each of the proposed lots of record. This large lot single-family subdivision is being proposed upon an approximately 55-acre tract of land located on the south side of St. Albans Road, State Route T, west of the intersection with State Route 100. FPNU floodplain non-urban resident district and NU non-urban resident district. Street addresses 18604 and 18700 St. Albans Road, St. Louis County locator numbers 24X 440014 and 24Y 640022. Proposed use, a total of 16 single-family dwellings on individual lots are being requested on the subject tract of land, each being 3 acres or greater in size, along with necessary private roadway improvements to access them, along with common ground area with visitor parking spaces. The reserve at St. Albans, and this particular tract of land is located in Ward 6.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vinich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, before you tonight for final action is a draft letter of recommendation regarding this request for a waiver to the city's requirements for wastewater treatment. The draft letter of recommendation reflects the action of the commission on March 2nd to support the requested waiver and is ready for your action and to be forwarded to City Council. The commission supported the waiver requests based on a set of conditions. The number of lots were reduced to 14, and then other provisions, very comprehensive provisions to ensure long-term maintenance of the individual systems, as well as other protections if an additional lot would be sought in the future. And just to reiterate, the action of the commission on March 2nd and tonight is regarding the waiver request for wastewater treatment, and just be advised that the preliminary plat will have to return to the commission for future review as well. So this is just regarding the waiver request. And again, the draft letter of recommendation is in the final form for your action and to be forwarded to City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Newberry. So even though it says 16 on the agenda, the updated is 14 lots.
The report reflects the 14 lots. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yep. All right. All right. Discussion or Commissioner Rubis?
Make a motion that we approve the letter.
All right. Motion to approve by Commissioner Rubis, seconded by Commissioner Helfrey. Any further discussion? All right. Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Rubis.
Aye.
Commissioner Boren.
Yes.
Commissioner Helfrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton.
Yes.
Commissioner Depler.
Yes.
Chair Beatty.
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
Yes.
Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. All right. Next on the agenda, PZ 10-25, Mr. Newberry.
PZ 10-25 Luxury Villas at Latitude N38, care of Latitude N38 LLC. 11605 Stutt Avenue, Suite 102, Creve Coeur, Missouri 63141. A request for a change in zoning from the NU non-urban residence district to the R6A 4,000 square foot residence district, Town Center Neighborhood General District, for a 6.9 acre tract of land that is located at the southeast corner of Etherton Road and Crestview Drive. Locator numbers 23V210140, 23V210151, 23V210021, and 23V220022. Street address is 2442, 2448, 2454 Etherton Road, and 16928 Crestview Drive, Ward 8. And PZ 11-25 Luxury Villas at Latitude N38, care of Latitude N38 LLC, 11605 Stutt Avenue, Suite 102, Creve Coeur, Missouri 63141. A request for a planned residential development overlay district, PRD, in the R6A 4,000 square foot residence district, Town Center Neighborhood General District, for the same 6.9 acre tract of land that is located at the southeast corner of Etherton Road and Crestview Drive. Locator numbers 23V210140, 23V210151, 23V210021, and 23V220022. Street address is 2442, 2448, 2454 Etherton Road, and 16928 Crestview Drive. Proposed uses a total of a maximum of 44 single-family attached dwellings in clusters of 3 and 4 and 6 units, along with associated streets and pedestrian network, off-street parking areas, required public space, and stormwater management facilities, Ward 8.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as you may recall, at the March 2nd meeting of this body, the matter relating to the two requests just read into tonight's record by Mr. Newberry was presented in the form of an information report and a recommendation from the Department of Planning. At the conclusion of the discussion, a vote was taken to deny the two requests, and that vote was in majority to move forward as recommended by the Department of Planning. The letter of recommendation tonight is in draft form for final consideration and action by the Planning and Zoning Commission. With final action, the matter will then be forwarded to City Council as a receipt and file. Certainly, Mr. Doster has made comments relative to the review of the project by the Department of Planning. The Department of Planning stands by the rationales it's identified in its report, that were acted upon favorably by the Planning and Zoning Commission at its March 2nd meeting. So tonight, as mentioned, this letter of recommendation is now in the appropriate form for final action. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vernich. Discussion or a motion? Commissioner Helfrey?
I make a motion to approve as written.
All right, seconded by Councilman Marshall. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Boren votes yes. Commissioner Helfrey,
Yeah.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler votes yes. Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
No.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
and Mayor Garitano.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Newberry, PZ 1-26.
PZ 1-26, City of Wildwood Planning and Zoning Commission, care of Department of Planning, Wildwood City Hall, 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. A request to consider amendments to Chapter 415 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood to regulate and restrict the use of land for operation of facilities commonly referred to as information technology and data processing facilities or data centers, and establishing specific performance standards to address potential adverse impacts, including noise pollution, utility infrastructure demands, visual aesthetics, and environmental footprints, and other matters relating to the general health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city, and other matters related thereto, all wards.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vernich?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, again, at the March 2nd meeting of this body, the Department of Planning presented its information report with recommendation regarding what are commonly known as data centers. That recommendation wanted to achieve two goals. Those goals were to ensure that any future data centers would be located in the Wildwood portion of the Chesterfield Valley, and that those data centers would meet a general and what the department believes rigorous set of performance standards. Minus as part of that report were certain definitions. As was noted at the conclusion of the discussion and before the vote on March 2nd, those definitions were being prepared by our city attorney and have been included as part of the draft letter of recommendation. Mr. Young's firm has had an extensive experience with data centers, particularly in the rural areas of St. Charles County and beyond. And the definitions, I think, reflect, first and foremost, data centers as defined and the components of that definition to ensure that the interpretation that may follow will be closely monitored and assure that we do not have a data center that doesn't necessarily comply. So tonight, the draft letter of recommendation is in the appropriate form for final consideration by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And if there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to answer them at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vernich. Commissioner Helfrey?
Thank you, Mr. Vernich, for putting all the definitions in like I asked. I do have a question though. On the conditions where I think it's the top of page 9, it says number 1A, it addresses the groundwater and storm management and wastewater, noise level and lighting and electrical consumption. And so what I want to know is, how do we prevent them being able to use our electricity and our water and then us have to pay a percentage? Because I know that I read somewhere in Missouri that Ameren came to an agreement with some data center that they would only be responsible for 80% of their electric consumption. And I don't want that to happen here. I mean, can we do that? Do we have the teeth to do that? Because if we can't, then I'm going to turn my house a data center so that I only have to pay for 80% of my electrical consumption.
Well, as I recall from the March 2nd meeting, Mr. Young made it clear the state legislature has that authority, and part of that authority lies with the Public Service Commission. It's well beyond our ability to manage Ameren, Missouri or Missouri American Water Company. The intent of the performance standards is to ensure that first and foremost, water is a public source, not from groundwater impacting many of the large lot areas that depend on wells for potable purposes, and to at least ensure at the minimum that all data centers proposed in the city of Wildwood meet current state statute. And so we're deferring to the state legislature for those protections. And if our acting city attorney has any insights, I'd be certainly glad to yield the podium at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I
would agree with that.
Commissioner Clayton.
Make a motion to approve the letter as draft.
All right, seconded by Councilman Marshall. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus,
Yes.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Mayor Garitano. Thank
All
you.
right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's see here. PZ 4-26, Mr. Vunich.
Mr. Chair, 4-26, City of Planning and Zoning Commission, care of the Department of Planning, City 16860 Main Street, Wildwood, Missouri 63040. A request for the review and consideration of modifications to Chapter 415.030 definitions, Chapter 415.090 NU non-urban resident district, and Chapters 415.110 through 415.160, such being inclusive of all R districts of the City of Wildwood zoning ordinance, specifically regarding the city's existing review standards, processes, and requirements associated with outdoor game courts, parenthetical, sport court, along with their corresponding review processes by the Planning and Zoning Commission and subsequent permitting steps by the city. The item is in all words. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mr. Newberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, as was begun last month in March with a public hearing regarding this item, the commission moved forward with a review of the city's regulations regarding outdoor game courts. These regulations have been in place and implemented for about 12 years. So we all thought it was a good time to take a look at them and make sure that they're still working and if we can approve upon them. So just I want to briefly go over the department's analysis of the current regulations and its proposed modifications. First, we looked at the definition of outdoor game court and our current regulations. We found it to be very comprehensive, with just a few small additions relative to multiple use courts, as well as addressing the pickleball activity specifically. Thereafter, the regulations many of them were maintained, if not all of them, and simply a structural change to the way that they were written is being recommended tonight. They are broken into different categories, the first of which is the what is identified as the plan submittal requirements, which clearly define what needs to be submitted for the commission's review of outdoor game courts. Perhaps the most important from the department's perspective item in this component is that the plans need to be submitted by a professional engineer, which is a lesson learned from formal submittals. The next component is related to the Plan Commission's review and the process. So the recommended language is including this section that clearly defines the commission's role in reviewing outdoor game courts and the meeting or meetings that it would review, approve, or act on, and then ultimately approve a final plan through that process. This also clearly defines the public notice requirements that have been the practice of the department, but this formalizes it. So that concludes that component. Again, this is just a kind of a restructuring and a clarification of the current regulations. And then lastly is the new one, and that relates to the pickleball court activity. So as we learn more about pickleball and the noises it creates, the department is recommending that we specifically identify pickleball activity as a special type of use related to outdoor game courts. And with that comes, we're recommending that we establish a minimum lot area for any pickleball activity, which is 1 acre is what we're recommending, and then establish a greater setback than is typical of regular accessory structures. And that's being recommended at 150 feet from the property line. And then lastly, we established provisions to be able to manage the noise concerns on a case-by-case basis as the commission reviews specific proposals, and establish hours of operation for pickleball activity to go no later than 9 p.m. 7 days a week on residential lots. So before you tonight is a recommended modified outdoor game court definition and regulations, and those are summarized in attachment A, and we're available for any questions if you have them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Commissioner Helfrey?
I make a motion to approve the city's recommendation.
Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, seconded by Commissioner Rubis. Any discussion? Councilman Marshall?
Do any of with setback being changed, do any of the older courts that have been put in, will they be out of compliance or will they be in compliance?
We've done, so just a little background, we've done only 3 courts that had pickleball activity associated with them. And those have been within the last, I'll say 4 years. The first was on a very large lot, and the setback component was not necessarily reviewed given the size of the lot and then location centrally located on the lot. The second was on a 3-acre parcel in Wardenburg Farm. I believe we did establish a greater setback, and I apologize, I don't have the answer, but that one may come into conflict with the 150-foot setback. And then we did one on Shepherd Ridge Court, and I think that one was established at 100-foot, and that was because we had it on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
It's a good question.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
From the standpoint of the department and the zoning ordinance, if an existing pickleball court is non-compliant due to setbacks, the non-conforming uses, lands, and structures actually say it's not non-conforming because of the setbacks. So it would be legal. If they were to add to it, the new setback would apply.
To add on to that, if they like did a pretty good like refurbishment somewhere down the line, they're good. Okay. All right. If seeing no other comments, roll call vote.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson, Mr. Jackson, Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Boren,
No.
Commissioner Boren votes no. Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Mayor Garitano.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. Mr. Newberry, PZ 5-10.
A recommendation report of the Department of Planning to the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding PZ 5-10 Equine Assisted Therapy, Inc., care of Stephen H. Aker, 13321 North Outer 40 Road, Suite 100, Town Country, Missouri 63017. Conditional use permit in the NU Non-Urban Residence District and FPNU Floodplain Non-Urban Residence District, a 14.63 acre tract of land located on the west side of Highway 109, north of Old State Road, locator numbers 26V520112 and 26V520013. Street addresses 3369 Highway 109 and 4029 Princeton Ridge Drive, which supports certain changes to the existing conditions of the permit to further the use of the property for horse boarding facility for the purposes of providing horsemanship experiences to special needs groups. Ward 6.
All right, thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vernich?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration a letter with recommendation relating to equine assisted therapy. There are three major components that equine assisted therapy is requesting the Planning and Zoning Commission consider favorably. The first of those is a new two-story building that they would like to construct for office, counseling, and storage purposes. That building would be where the glass greenhouse is located now on the property, if you're familiar, or near Route 109. The second component would be to place a roof over the outdoor riding arena so as it can be weatherproofed and also provide shade for users during the hot summer months. That structure would be open air, meaning it would be a roof on post. And finally, as you know, many years ago, Equine Assisted Therapy leased property from LaSalle Institute to use for additional pasture area. That ultimately changed. The property was purchased by Equine Assisted Therapy from LaSalle Institute, and the conditional use permit needs to be updated to reflect the change from a lease arrangement to ownership. I would also note, as part of this particular set of requests, the petitioner would like to increase the number of equine from 13 to 26. If you do the math, it's still about an equine per acre, and that's the general rule of thumb that many use, particularly if they are grass-fed. But in this case, the equine are grass-fed, plus there are feeding stations or hay mangers that are used. The department has reviewed the request and believe they are appropriate and consistent with the 4 criteria established for conditional use permits, which relate to good planning practice, compatibility with permitted uses in that particular zoning district, visual compatibility, and then finally, is there a community benefit derived from the permit relative to the public's health, safety, and welfare? As you know, equine assisted therapy provides a service that is much needed in the region and certainly do it very well to those that participate. The department does note that this property is in floodplain and floods. And so as part of all reviews, our Department of Public Works and our director, Rick Brown, as floodplain administrator, will ensure that compliance to federal regulations will be met. So tonight you have a favorable recommendation. The changes are highlighted in attachment B. And if there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to try to answer them at this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vernich. Discussion or a motion? Commissioner Rubis?
This was the property that services a septic system for both the LaSalle and LaSalle's middle school?
No, that particular property is on the north side of Whitsett Fork Road. The new purchase ground and the existing facility are south of Whitsett Fork
So
Road.
the septic system would not come into play.
They have a on-site system. There is provisions in the conditional use permit. If they exceed 5,000 gallons of wastewater per day, they'd have to come back and do a plan, but we're not at that stage yet.
All right, Councilman Marshall?
I make a motion to forward the recommendation.
All right, thank you. Second by Commissioner Helfrey. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Commissioner Bourne,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Helfrey,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
and Mayor Garitano. Thank
All
you.
right, motion carries. Thank you. Next, Mr. Newberry, Hollow Hills Estates.
In response to a communication from Jonathan Hill, property owner dated February 12, 2026, that seeks the Planning and Zoning Commission's review and recommendation on a requested change to an approved waiver to the installation of a centralized wastewater treatment plant granted to this residential project by the city for the Hills Hollow Estates subdivision, JGH Building Group LLC, NU Non-Urban Residence District, 31 acres, northwest corner of State Route 100 and Pond Road, street address 1855 and 1871 Pond Road and 2005 Linda Jane Lane, St. Louis County. Locator numbers 23W610101, 23W610110, and 23W520086, which reflects changes to the preliminary plat that eliminates any future option for a 9th lot, Ward 1.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration a recommendation in letter form relating to a request from Mr. Hill relative to Hills Hollow Estates. If you remember, the Planning and Zoning Commission granted a waiver to a centralized wastewater treatment plant for the 31-acre tract of land on which 8 large lots are proposed. Large lots being greater than 3 acres in size. The waiver was conditioned on a number of requirements. One set of requirements related to the design and ultimate platting of the property to ensure that if a 9th lot was ever required, there would be provisions to accommodate such. That particular requirement was premised on an easement that was shown from the end of the western cul-de-sac through the site and up to the adjoining property to the north, almost ensuring that a 9th lot potentially could be requested or more. Therefore, it made logical sense to require it. Mr. Hill has revised the preliminary plat and no longer shows that access easement to the north property that abuts the current site. With that removal, there is now the likelihood that a 9th lot will never come to fruition. Given the sizes of the lots and the fact that 2 lots are encumbered by a portion of Bottom Creek, it would take 3 property owners to ultimately agree to basically consolidate their lots and then re-subdivide to 4. The likelihood of that seems very impractical in today's world and would probably be prohibited by the Natural Resource Protection Standards, the Tree Preservation and Restoration Code, and other regulations of the city. The benefit to the petitioner is that there is not the requirements to plat the necessary easements for the plant or the easements for lines, laterals, and mains to the plant for each individual lot. And more importantly, the design of the homes will not require the wastewater treatment to serve to a individual plant now and potentially to a few individual household treatment systems on the lot in a plant in the future. The department believes the request is reasonable given the circumstances and has provided you a recommendation that eliminates those sets of conditions relative to the 9th lot. If there are any questions or comments regarding this particular matter, the department would be glad to try and answer them at this time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vunich. So looking at that map, there's that shaded area going off the cul-de-sac. That's what you're saying has been eliminated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that was that 40-foot wide access easement, which ultimately could have been a private roadway easement or private roadway dedication. And that property to the north, I believe, is about 30 acres. So that was the concern.
Oh, that they would use their road to develop that property.
And again, the waiver was clearly premised by the commission on that 8 lots or less.
All right. Just playing devil's advocate. If someone decided to develop that 30 acres and wanted to use that roadway, like given a magical approval, that probably wouldn't happen from the subdivision.
Well, Well, if you pull the thread, Hills Hollow Estates is 8 lots. If it were to be recorded and the 8 lots established legally, the argument could be made, well, how would we know that they created an easement for access purposes? In the city of Wildwood, we define a subdivision as a creation of an easement for access purposes. So that easement constitutes a subdivision, and a subdivision has to be approved by city council. So obviously, we would address it at that time.
Okay.
So we,
Yeah. With that 30 acres, where does that access from?
Pond Road.
Oh, okay. So that, all right, so that lot directly north wraps around the backside there.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, there, I think that's a better image. Thank you, Mr. Newberry.
All right. Oh, I'm, yeah. I was thinking of that second one in, is that this, because it looks like there's 2 lots there on the north.
Yes, the original tract was about 77 acres. Ultimately, it was divided into 3 parcels of ground. The 30 plus acres that we're reviewing at this moment, the other 30 plus acres to the north, and then a 7-acre tract of land. And ultimately, there's been a lot of sales and transactions, and the 7-acre property was purchased by the homeowner to the north of it, and they use it as just recreation space. The 30 acres plus in the middle, there's some back and forth about potential use of that. We've had people look at it for a subdivision. We've had a family look at it as kind of a compound, a few homes there for mom and dad and the kids. And as I say, it's kind of all just stayed in undeveloped.
So, because, yeah, this is the tract I'm referring.
Oh, that tract is accessed by Linda Jane Lane.
Okay, I'm seeing that now. All right.
Yep. I'm sorry.
All right. Let's hear. So we've got do we have a motion on the? All right.
A motion.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Rubis, second by Commissioner Clayton. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Hopefrey. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Boren. Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depper,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubis,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Mayor Garitano. Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Next, Mr. Newberry, PZ 13-04.
A recommendation report from the Department of Planning to the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding PZ 13-04 McLean Properties, Inc., C8 Planned Commercial District, northwest corner of State Route 109 and New College Avenue. Street address 17101 New College Avenue, St. Louis County locator numbers 24V410231, which recommends the approval of upgrades to the outdoor seating in association with the Wildwood Pub and Grill that includes installation of sound mitigation steps, improvements to accessible parking and access, and construction of safety enhancements to the area of these activities, Ward 1.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Newberry. Mr. Vunich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department has prepared for your consideration a recommendation report regarding a site development section plan that involves Wildwood Pub and Grill. In that particular report, the department thought it was important to kind of go through the sequence that has led to the outdoor dining components and the component that is being discussed tonight amongst the commission members. Over the course of a period of time from approximately 2010 to 2012, outdoor dining was authorized via site development plans or amendments to site development plans relative to the Wildwood Pub and Grill. The first set of outdoor seating was to the south of the restaurant building in an area that is below grade of New College Avenue and on the south side. The second set was added again approximately 2 years later, and that was the area of sidewalk and 2 or 3 parking spaces in front of the restaurant itself. As part of that, review was conducted by the Metro West Fire Protection District, as well as the City of Wildwood's Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning. Ultimately, additional seating was provided there. That set of outdoor seating to the south of the existing building and to the front of the building stayed in place for the most part unchanged until the pandemic. And in the recommendation report, the department kind of goes through the components during the pandemic that kind of led to tonight's discussion. Obviously, the pandemic was very difficult for many businesses, more so, I think, than any others were restaurants. Obviously, contact amongst people in the restaurant business is incumbent upon success. And with the pandemic, stay-at-home orders, masks, etc., a lot of the restaurants, particularly in Wildwood and elsewhere, went to outdoor seating to meet Department of Public Health Safety guidelines. As that morphed and the emergency order was put in place by Mayor Boland, allowances were made to accommodate the nature of the emergency and to ensure the success of the businesses needing that emergency order. Ultimately, though, what we found over the course of time is that we need to kind of backtrack and ensure what was added during the pandemic is safe today. And so that is the subject of tonight's meeting. Obviously, in the report, the department identifies the components that are being addressed, adding fencing sections along a portion of the outdoor area to address the performance of live music from a 10 by 10 pop-up tent. That sound abatement measures include landscaping, fencing, and as part of the recommendation of the department, a sound curtain on a portion of the 10 by 10 tent to ensure that the sound stays in the area intended, as well as the potential for acoustical panels on portions of the building. What we discovered is brick is a great reflector of sound, and we think that if it becomes an issue, we have a solution. There is, as I mentioned, landscaping. Certain parking spaces will be eliminated to accommodate the expanded area, and we will shift accessible parking to a better location and provide easier access from that accessible space to the building itself. Also, a tactile surface will be added to the parking lot to increase footing and traction. And then finally, new traffic control measures will be added at the edge of the outdoor area to ensure that an errant car does not create an issue. Again, the department believes that by proceeding forward with these changes, we will, for all intents and purposes, improve the function of the outdoor seating area, make it a better plan for the business itself, and encourage the business to succeed. We will address the sound components that have caused certain complaints over the course of time, and we will improve the accessibility for certain populations to the restaurant and other businesses in the center. Overall, as a result of the pandemic, we've kind of organically grown. This is the opportunity for Wildwood Pub and Grill, who has been very cooperative with the Department of Planning and the department to address those changes that have happened over the course of time. So tonight you have a favorable recommendation regarding this particular section plan, which again relates to the Wildwood Pub and Grill. If there are any questions or comments, the department would be very glad to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Mayor Garetano.
Yeah, thank you, Director Vunich. Appreciate this. I know this is important because I've had since 2024, a number of complaints related to the Wildwood Pub and Grill. In fact, I don't really get any complaints from any businesses at all. If there was one that I would rank at the top of the list, this is it. I don't hear from anyone else. How cooperative was the Wildwood Pub and Grill with the city's previous attempts to address the issue of noise that we were hearing complaints related to?
Well, certainly each time that a complaint was sent to you or others on staff or the police department, if the police or staff responded, it was addressed almost immediately from the perspective of the department, the director of the department. I think that would be echoed by the police department. At least that's what Captain Mundell has recited to me. I found them to be very cooperative. Obviously, live music has become almost an integral part of outdoor dining. For the most part, it is a small area. I think what we're facing is just the reflective tendencies of the brick, and sound in Wildwood does crazy things. I just can't explain it at times. We get complaints about noise from Route 100 all the way up at Wild Horse Creek Road and Fort Road. And it just, like I say, it's a devil at times.
Well, yeah, it is interesting because the sound complaints that I would get are actually kind of right behind the stage area. It is the Townsend Winter Crest and Old Grover Estates. I believe those two subdivisions that are closest by Metro West. But the
Windrush,
issue,
not Windsor Crest.
What's that?
Windrush, but not
Townsend
Windsor
Wind-
Crest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, wrong one there. They're diagonally across from each other on 100 there. So, but the main issue really is not just the noise. Well, the noise outside, but really people saying they hear the noise inside their house. And I went several times because I would get calls on weekends. This summer was miserable. I many times I was on the phone with our city administrator, the captain. I know that there was a police report that was filed. We had a resident. I included one copy of just one example of the types of emails we would get, and then there were many voicemails as well of these complaints here. I mean, really to the point where we're looking at, well, what else do we do? You know, could we revoke the liquor license, suspend the liquor license if there's no compliance? You know, what options do we have as a city to address this? Because I understand our city administrator made numerous attempts to have conversations with the management. Thomas Lee, who is here, had numerous conversations to try to get compliance, to try to address the issue. And it seems like every time a conversation would happen, the next weekend, the complaints would start coming in again. And like I said, I don't really get complaints on Friday, Saturday nights, you know, leading right up to 9 o'clock. And numerous times I know the Wildwood Police Precinct sent officers there to try to address it. I know that, you know, I love supporting our local businesses. I want to support businesses that are in compliance, that are not disturbing our residents. So I'm seeking a solution here, and hopefully this is going to address it because we do need to make sure that this gets buttoned up so that we don't have this issue again going into it this summer. I mean, there's obviously we're running out of options, and there's just a few left here on the table. So, Director Vunich, you addressed the fencing material that goes behind the stage. The reflection, is that also included in this report?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also, let me see what else. The sound curtains, because we did a really good job when we had another proposal before us. And that's why we never went through this proposal with Wildwood Pub and Grill. So this was why when we did this with Good News Brewery, I have not gotten a single complaint, and that's actually even closer than, and you could tell because there were nights they didn't even have anything going on there with music. You could just stand outside and hear the direction of the music. So with Good News Brewery, we addressed an issue there with sound curtains.
Yes,
Is that also included in this report recommendation?
Yes, there's 4 components, Mr. Mayor. There's the principal one is the board fence, a solid fence that will encapsulate the backside and northwest side of the 10 by 10 tent. The second is landscaping on the east side of the tent, where we're transitioning from the board fence to the concrete retaining wall, which is the most effective tool. Third is the noise curtain as a component of the 10 by 10 tent. And then finally, the acoustic panels on the certain portions of the building and wall itself.
Where is that in the report, Director Voynich? I was just trying to make sure. I
It
didn't
is
miss
on
that.
page 5, item 2. Just real briefly, it's the installation of board fencing and landscaping will mitigate sound. Also, in regards to sound abatement, the department does believe at least one side of the tent should be fitted with sound curtain to eliminate what is termed as flutter echo. The northwest side of the performance tent would need to be fitted. In addition, given the area is below grade encompassed by hard surface, that can redirect sound, the strategic location of limited number of sound attenuation panels on certain columns of the building and portions of the retaining wall near the dining area need to be considered as well. With the complement of these steps, the department is confident that the concerns of the neighbors relative to noise can be adequately addressed.
Okay, well, let me see if there's any other comments from the commission here.
Councilman Marshall?
I was just curious because I thought that Good News Brewery had to be all acoustical, no amplifiers. That's probably a big difference between these two.
Yes, the difference here is over time, obviously, Lovewood Pub and Grill has been a longstanding business and restaurant component of the city of Wildwood and its town center. At the time that all of this kind of occurred, with the initial rezoning occurring in 2004, there just didn't seem to be the issues. And as development has occurred and we've approved projects, there are more people in the vicinity. Good News Brewing Company was a fresh start, so to speak, and we addressed it because we wanted to ensure that we could provide appropriate sound mitigation. And many of those tools, except, for example, ours relative to the performance of music and acoustic versus amplified. We're not amending the ordinance. I didn't have the authority to do that. But every other step that I thought appropriate and discussed with Mayor Garitano and others are included as part of the recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Rubis?
Is there a time limit on when the music has to stop at and how does that compare to Good News Brewery?
Again, this ordinance has been amended, but not, I believe, since 2012. So there is no limitation on operation or performance of music, other than obviously liquor sales. I think it's 1:30 in the evening at night. They've closed the bar, but there is no. Again, remember, this is a 22-year-old development versus Good News Brewing, which is within the last year or so.
Is that an option for the city to limit the hours of the music?
Certainly, the governing ordinance, the CA Plan Commercial District, can be amended, but in this particular instance, we have a site plan submittal that didn't prompt the need because there's nothing non-compliant per se. Because we have a noise code, and noise code doesn't really address what I would consider intermittent sounds. It's a sound that is ongoing for an hour or more without interruption. And so it's very different. Our noise code is not necessarily tailored toward car accelerating with mufflers that make noise, nor the playing of music where a song is played and there's a break, there's a song, there's a break, and then there's a set that ends and one that starts 20 minutes later. We don't have those tools other than the police responding to peace disturbance.
Commissioner Helfrey?
So I have two questions, and I'm going to ask my second one first, and that is, so am I understanding that the noise code is site specific? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, in certain instances, we're making it site specific to address outdoor performance of music. But generally speaking, the noise code is applicable to every property in Wildwood.
Well, because I guess I'm confused because I know that I've heard in the past that we've had to deal with issues with Big Chief and their music. And now we're talking about Good News Brewery, a brewing company, and how we've adequately dealt with theirs. And then I thought that and I'm sorry if I misunderstood you. I thought that you just said that Wildwood Pub can play their music till whenever?
Well, I know they don't. I think it's either 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock on Friday and Saturdays. But again, context wise here, Big Chief Roadhouse began playing music without any authorization. No site plan approval, nothing in the ordinance. In fact, spoke to all activities need to be inside the building, not outside. So that was a violation, which led us to work with the owner of the restaurant and amend the ordinance to address it to the hopefully satisfaction of the surrounding residents. And there are residents right next door. They're on adjoining properties. Good News Brewing Company was a fresh start, a new business in an old, the West County feed and grain. And so we were able to address it as part of the development of that ordinance. Here in this instance, as I say, each instance where outdoor seating was provided, there were site plan approvals. The addition of the music came, for all intent, from the perspective of the department. It may be earlier, but during the pandemic and under the emergency orders, we were doing a lot of those things just to ensure the businesses could stay viable during what was a very unusual time.
Thank you. My next question might just be ridiculous, but I'm just curious if they play at a different angle, like have you talked to them about, the music facing or amplifiers facing a different direction? Because you said that the sound bounces off of the brick. And I know that the wall kind of going down, isn't that stone as well? So if the band plays with their sound amplified a different direction, does that have any bearing on the sound?
Well, the band is directing the music toward the southwest, so toward the building itself, not out away from the building. And that's the reflective nature of sound. That's why we're trying to address it with the acoustic panels at strategic locations. I guess what I would say is, obviously, if they chose, they could use less speakers, which generate less sound. That's an option that was described in some of the research the department conducted on this particular matter. So I think there's multiple ways. What the department is proposing here are the key considerations, those that you see in almost all discussions about trying to address sound and the impact it has off-site. And so from the perspective of the department, it feels that if we do these four, we're a long way there toward addressing the concerns that have been expressed by residents to our city administrator and to the mayor.
Okay, I just asked because when we did all of that sound stuff, one of the things that you guys had taught us was that sound goes until it hits something and then it goes up and over. And so if it was hitting those buildings and then reverberating back and going over, so maybe in the future, if that doesn't work, what we're doing now, maybe they can turn the van. But I don't know if there's a motion to approve your recommendation, but I'll make it if there isn't one.
Well, just the board fence is 8 feet in height. The landscaping is to be 6 to 8 feet in height. And the acoustic panels and the sound curtain are the safety measures we feel that are important enough to apply.
Yeah, because
Thank you, Mr. Vintage.
Commissioner Bourne, I'll come to you in 1 second. But if they flipped it around, then they would be aiming directly at the subdivisions.
I'm at pace.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
or any other way, there's walls on 3 sides there. So I think you're either going to face it directly or reflect off something. But Commissioner Bourne?
Yeah, a couple of my questions have already been answered, but Mr. Vunich, I applaud you for trying to work with Wildwood Pub in allowing them to have outdoor music. I think it's important for these businesses in Wildwood to have that option. And I think what you propose are all great ideas. The 10 o'clock cutoff makes a lot of sense to me. I would think that people prior to 10 o'clock, if the noise is somewhat controlled by these mitigating things you put in place, should be reasonable. I would also argue that a band with percussions, especially drums, that sound's going to carry a whole lot farther than a 1, 2, or 3 person, small, string based and vocal band is going to carry. So I know we don't have any control over that, but making recommendations to Wildwood Pub to maybe try to limit full bands with percussions is maybe one thing they might want to consider.
Thank you, Mr. Bourne. And the manager of Wildwood Pub and Grill is here tonight, so I'm sure she heard what you just said.
I do have a question for City Administrator Lee. What suggestions or what kind of discussions did you have or communications in the past? Like, I just want to make sure that we're not trying something that's already been tried before, so that these resident calls, complaints fully stop with whatever way.
With Wildwood Pub specifically, Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, so this what they're proposing now with this fence, and one of the big components that had me feeling a little bit better is that it's 8 feet, and then it's a panel. It doesn't have a gap in between. If it was like just a normal fence, the sound would travel through it. That said, beforehand, there wasn't any mitigating factors. So I think now, when the sound is being pushed back up against the wall, it's kind of going to be reverberating inside and then pushing back towards the community college is the thought. I think the addition of this fence, as Mr. Vunich has described tonight, along with the landscaping buffer as well, and those sound panels if needed, I think that is a really big jump in the right direction. But I actually do want to piggyback on Commissioner Borden's comment that if there's a way we can't control this, but if there's a way to limit the percussion from the resident complaints that have come in, it does seem to be when it aligned with the percussions introduced. So just as a possible item that we could talk as a sidebar. But the main thing is, I think with what is being presented tonight, I think that will go a long way in controlling the sound as long as it's, kept at the similar levels that it's at today.
So what kind of conditions were put in place for Good News Brewery as far as hours go, and maybe type of music? I wonder, maybe in the spirit of being fair, maybe we need to look at doing the same, so that this way, if we're kind of defeating ourselves if we're allowing a certain business to play music, let's say until 9 o'clock, and then another one goes till 10, then you still have the noise. And I don't think it's an issue for Wildwood Pub and Grill after 9, because I know that a lot of times calls would come in around 8:30 to 9 o'clock. And then usually if police were running late because they were handling something more serious, and let's say they got there right at 9, the music would be over by the time they got there at 9. So the complaints were coming in before that. So back to my question, what are the conditions? Maybe we can kind of do an alignment like that.
Mr. Vunich, I think we actually we limited them to just acoustic on that stage that they have there. That's one. And I think they are not permitted any music on Sunday. I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but correct me if I'm wrong there, Mr. Vunich, but I don't think they are able to go too late. I think it was a cutoff time at 8 o'clock, if I remember correctly.
First and foremost, Good News Brewing Company isn't open on Monday or Tuesday, so we're talking about a 5-day-a-week business. And then they provided to us their scenario for live performances in the band shell, and it was just a few days of those 5 days. We did limit hours of operation, and we made it acoustic only. I'm trying to pull up
What
the
are the
report.
hours? Or, yeah.
Yep, trying to.
Mr. Vunich, I can pull them up together too. 1 second.
Are we just doing the motion? Is the motion on the floor just for the site plan? Is that what we're doing right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, unless I'm in error, if there would have been a component of the design that was incompatible or in violation of the governing ordinance, that would have prompted a different approach. Here in this particular case, there wasn't under the determination of the department, so it's just a plan. typically we don't amend ordinances without the permission of the owner or operator of the business or property. So unless I'm mistaken, and we can certainly check with John Young tomorrow, I think I'm following standard practice as set forth in our zoning ordinance.
All right, Commissioner Rubis.
So if we recommend this approach, all 4 items will be accomplished?
That is the intent, sir.
Because I think city administrator said about the panels, if needed, and the only way we could tell if they would be needed is to get more noise complaints after. So we vote for this, we get the fence, the panels, the landscaping, and all 4 items.
All 4 items are intended. The only caveat in the report is I just don't know how many acoustic panels are appropriate. There are certain areas I think they would be most effective, but it may be a bit of trial and error, as you mentioned. Certainly, we don't want to add panels that aren't necessary or in positions that do not serve a purpose. So I think that we know that there are components of the building and the columns associated with the building that are reflective, and then I think there are portions of the wall. But I kind of like to start conservatively and see if those work, and we'll know almost immediately. If not, and then we can move on to the second stage if necessary.
Commissioner Bourne.
Yeah, just thinking through it, I'm in support of what Mr. Vunich is saying. I think what he's proposing makes a lot of sense. Put it out there. Let's see what happens. Point and counterpoint here, though. You understand that there are always going to be a certain percent of the population that will complain no matter how many mitigating things are put in place, no matter how low the volume of the music is, they will not be happy. At the same time, I think if a reasonable person says if it's limited to, certain nights of the week, especially weekend nights, and the cutoff is no later than 10 p.m., then that serves the general public who wants to listen to music on a Friday or Saturday evening. Cutting it off at 8 o'clock really doesn't do the business any good. And me as a resident, it doesn't do me any good. If I'm going to go listen to music, it's not going to be at 6:30. It's going to be probably between 8 and 10. So I think we need to keep that in mind for the viability of the business and for those people who do enjoy listening to music at these venues. The next step, I think, for probably not this commission, but maybe for city council is, if this doesn't work, it's limiting things like percussions. It's limiting things like the volume that's coming out of those amplifiers, because we've all been in bars and music venues where you can't even speak to someone sitting right next to you because it's so loud. A lot of bands think that they're great when their music is loud. That's not the case. I would prefer to have something of moderate volume, and I think that could be managed by the manager of the establishment.
So here's the requirements from Good News Brewing Company. The performance of music and the offering of outdoor games shall end no later than 9 p.m. and cannot start before 6 p.m. except on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, where outdoor games and performances can begin at 2 p.m. Music shall be limited to Wednesday through Sunday. Sunday music performances shall be limited to the hours of 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. The performance of music must be acoustic and not amplified. If amplified music is scheduled, the size of the performance group shall not exceed 2 musicians/singers.
Oh, so there is a provision for amplification. Just got to keep it to a small band.
That was added at the very end of the process per the request of the owner of the business. But we recognized that we took the necessary steps in the design of the stage to ensure music didn't go northeast or south, but to the southwest. And we limited the size, which makes sense given the size of the stage area. It's not a very big stage, as is a 10 by 10 tent.
Yeah. Was that when it was in front of city council that was added?
I believe it was added here at the Planning and Zoning Commission. I would have to check though. I'm
Yeah,
just not sure.
because I don't remember that part of it, but maybe my memory's getting bad, or maybe I missed that meeting. But I think we still need Commissioner Healthfree made the motion, but I think we do need a second still.
I'll give it a second.
Second by Commissioner Clayton. So, all right, we're good now.
So my question then is, do we need to make sure that things like the hours, because I've heard 10 o'clock and I'm pretty certain you guys do not play music past 9, because usually we know when the police would show up after 9, the music would stop. So
Yeah, go ahead. You can answer that, please. Okay.
the problem is that, people call and have kids that are trying to get them to sleep, and they're like, look, we're sitting in bed and it's 8:45 and we hear music coming from outside from Wildwood Pub and Grill. That's what I would get calls about. And I think that's why there is something that sound seems to be traveling. That's why I'm glad that we're looking at the fencing material and trying to find a way to stop that music from reflecting, so that you can still have your music, but it's not inconveniencing the folks that are kind of right across. I've been to that site there, down by the fire station, and I've actually even recorded the music on my phone from there. So it is traveling, it is loud. And like I said, my goal would be is that we don't get the complaints, that they stop, because otherwise we have a problem still and it continues to carry on. And, don't want to go through this process again. I'd like to see if we get it fixed the first time, so that this way, you have certainty with what's going on, and that's it.
Yeah, do you want to come on up to the microphone? Or it's just so that we can hear you in here fine, but they can't hear you on Zoom.
Yes, several meetings we've had to where, again, we keep calling it a fence, but I mean, it's the screen. Like, we ordered this material 2 months ago, hoping that all of this would be approved. Like, it's not just some backyard fence. I mean, it's a whole screen. Plus, like I said, the tent, we're putting the back walls on, everything. I mean, I think we're really doing everything to help show that we don't want the noise violations either. We don't want the police showing up every Friday and Saturday night. I mean, that's not what we're trying to deal with on a Friday night. I'm spending my time in the kitchen and with customers. So, I mean, I really think that we're trying to do everything. And then if one of my bands is getting the complaints, or if the police do come that evening, I'm addressing that band directly, and I'm not going to rebook them if they are playing over the volume, because if it's too loud for my customers on the patio, they're leaving also.
Yeah.
So we're having a dinner ambiance, not some, rock and roll party out there. So that's kind of where we're at right now, where we're here for the community. I think the community likes us and supports us, and we don't want the calls every weekend either.
All right. Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Anything else, Mayor Garrett?
Director Vunich, then, do you have what you need, or do we need to include any of those specific details that we talked about now? How would the city best work through this?
Well, the department has identified 4 what I would consider proven methods to abate sound. As I mentioned, the department didn't feel that anything that was identified on the section plan was in violation of the current code, so did not go back to Wildwood Pub and Grill and say we need to amend the ordinance to accommodate what you're showing on the amended section plan. I think at this stage, and we've tried this before, creating a general ordinance for the outdoor performance of music or the playing of music. whether it be through speakers or live bands. Ultimately, the Planning and Parks Committee said, no, they saw that as a disincentive. That's something we probably should revisit now. If there's concerns that we're not treating each entity equally, then I guess there is an approach where we could. I would argue that if one person complains, are we ultimately going to shut down a viable business? Viable business that's been part of the community now for 22 years. I think that's the measure that City Council needs to take. And I'm sorry, it's not necessarily what you may want to hear as the commission, but I deal with residents all day. Some of their requests are just unreasonable. I can't address them. There's no law that says I can. They don't like their neighbor. Well, I don't know what to do about that. I don't know if it's because of their ethnicity, their color, or etc. They're not breaking the law. In this instance, they are. They're creating a sound disturbance. We're trying to take the adequate steps to address it. But I know as I stand here before you tonight, someone will complain because that's just the nature of many of our residents out here.
All right. Let me, Mr. Lee.
Yeah, I was just going to add, and there are instances I can attest with Joe that, we will probably most likely still get complaints, but that is a decision the council have to make. I did want to point out though, I got a text here from a council member that was wishing to speak, Councilmember Albers, and it's obviously the chair's discretion whether or not to let an individual speak, but I just wanted to make sure that was noted to get his message across.
Yeah, he is council member for that ward, so is that him with his hand raised?
Yeah, as an attendee.
Yeah. Mr.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Albers, if you'd like to speak, you'll need to accept the prompt to become a panelist. Please and thank you.
Here he is. Go ahead and unmute yourself and then the floor is yours.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, but like Mayor Garitano stated, I would deal with that a little bit here. But I just kind of wanted to clarify kind of some of the stuff I've heard here. I always thought up at the Wildwood Pub that it was a 10 p.m. cutoff. And if I'm home on a Friday night, I can hear it. It's not bothering me. But, 10 o'clock sometimes becomes 10:15, 10:30. And I think that drives a lot of these problems with residents also. And, I'd like to be able to say we have a hard 10 o'clock cutoff if that's what it was supposed to be. And I thought that's what it was. As some of the other people said, that's maybe it's almost like the bewitching hour. If it goes past 10 p.m., then I think more people become more upset about it. So I'd like to see a hard cutoff at 10 o'clock enforced. And I can tell people that, and there's a couple that just have to live with it, and as far as good news, I thought theirs was at 10 o'clock also, but they've only really decided to play on Friday nights, for most of last season too. So that's my input, whatever it's worth to you guys. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Commissioner Helfrey.
One of the reasons that I made the motion to approve the department's recommendation is because in the years that I've been on planning and zoning, we've had a lot of experiences with sound, and the most notable one for me was Hidden Valley, where this place was packed. We had sound study after sound study done, and the city's opinion was, let us try, and then if it doesn't work, we can come back and fix it. And I think, to my knowledge, there hasn't been a problem with those zip lines since they went in. And so
They were
what
open one season.
what my suggestion, but there was no complaint. So that's the reason I made the motion. I think that we ought to give them the opportunity to see if we can remedy it. And then if not, then we can come back and we have something. And I recognize that you get a lot of complaints, but as somebody who's lived in Wildwood for 30 years, I will tell you, I hear Marquette, I hear Lafayette, I hear a lot of things, and I just hope we've got to give them a chance to fix it before we start.
Well, I think that with the department's recommendations, we can move forward as long as there's an opportunity. If it's not addressed, that we can then come back here and see what we need to do. Because again, I've looked at all tools that are available to me, and some are not pleasant. But we just need to make sure. And so even like with the 10 o'clock, and again, I don't know, because I got a lot of those complaints, and would he actually even come over if police were being called to see if this noise was really in fact happening or not. You can ask my wife, because she'd be at home, like, you got another call again. So I would say we look at these changes. If they work as intended, they're going to absorb the sound and deflect it, then we don't have a problem. But if obviously they're not effective, then we have to come back here and look at what is available to us. Because I think the best scenario is you guys can do, your business there, and the calls also, the complaints stop coming here. I don't want to feel like we have a concert venue that just happens to serve food and drinks, right? You're not a concert venue, you're a restaurant. So you happen to have music there, but the issues, the calls, it feels like it's like we have a concert venue that is happening. So the department has put together these recommendations. Let's see how they work. And if not, then we will be back here to see what else we could do. What I would ask is, if the city is going to contact you, if we do get calls, please take those serious. Do not, because that's the biggest thing. It was like, I would report back to these residents. The city had a conversation, and then a weekend or two later, boom, we're back at it again. So what's their reaction? They're like, well, you guys obviously aren't doing anything. And I'm like, City Administrator Lee sent an email. I know there were many times he told me that. He sent an email to you and several others. So let's see if we can get this addressed.
All right. Anything else? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Boren,
Yes.
Commissioner Hofree,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton,
Yes.
Commissioner Depler,
Yes.
Commissioner Rubus,
Yes.
Chair Beatty,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Mayor Garitano.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right, Historic Preservation Commission, Mr. Vunich.
Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, over the course of the last year, the first 3+ months of this year, 2026, Historic Preservation Commission has been working with a property owner regarding a historic asset known as the J.P. Connell House. It is one of 12 or so assets in the city that would be eligible for the Department of Interior National Park Service designation as a property worthy of the National Historic Register. Unfortunately, it's been neglected and not maintained, and the new owner is trying to reverse that trend. That new owner is seeking a large number of incentives under the historic land use category of the master plan. The department has prepared recommendations to the Historic Preservation Commission regarding the incentive package, and they've asked for a joint session with the Planning and Zoning Commission to gain your all's expertise. So tonight, the department is proposing a work session either on Monday or Tuesday, April 27th or 28th. I know that some of you may not have your calendars here, but I wanted to give you an explanation why the Historic Preservation Commission is requesting the joint session, because it involves an important historic asset, the master plan, and zoning incentives. So the department will send you an email tomorrow with the dates and potential times. If you could respond, it'd be much appreciated. If there are any questions or comments, the department would be glad to answer them.
All right, thank you. Personally, I would prefer Monday because it's the same night as this, but
Okay. Thank you.
that's just me.
Um,
Rubus.
did St. Alban Properties sell that just to another owner?
Yes, St. Albans Properties sold it to Christine and Terry Gruey. The Grueys are commercial developers. The project they're most known for is Gravois Bluffs, that large commercial center in the Fenton area. And as I say, initially it was, the thought was, is we may have found the solution, but the incentive package is difficult. And so that's why the Historic Preservation Commission is seeking your input.
Is this the Grueys that live out west or
Yes.
north, I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll get back in contact with you and we'll do our best to schedule it. If it doesn't work out, certainly we understand. Everybody has busy schedules. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. And Commissioner Helfrey?
Motion to adjourn.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we're adjourned. That was a marathon one.
Mr. Board, Ms. Stepler,